Chapter 5:18. Night election. In the 18th year since the establishment of the Holy City, the night system was officially implemented. The night election, which was used to select qualified knights, was an important event and was scheduled to be held in the middle of October every year. To obtain the identity of a knight, to obtain the official qualification to go out of the city and investigate the outside world, to join the knights and fight against the higher life forms that put humans in a desperate situation, they had to pass a series of strict tests. Only knights who truly met the requirements were allowed to join the knight. Those who did not meet the requirements would not be of any use other than being a burden. Year 78 of Evernight. Under the approval of the Parliament, the royal family invested a lot of money, and the 13 knights gave teachers resources to officially establish the National Royal Knight Academy. The newcomers who passed the Destiny Space for the first time were given a fixed learning place, high-quality teaching facilities, and targeted professional training, which greatly increased the success rate of each trainee knight. At the end of the 4th year, the graduates who successfully broke the seed would participate in the knight election. Through various tests, the students would be verified whether they were qualified to join the knights and join the knights that were suitable for them. They would officially start the investigation and exploration of the outside world, sacrificing their hearts for the freedom of humans. Those who performed well during the election would also receive special awards and various privileges. The Holy City also encouraged such a selection mechanism and was committed to cultivating elite knights who could take charge of things on their own. However, the Holy City did not hand over all the knight training tasks to the National Royal Knight Academy. For some special students, they would train them in other ways. The currently known special training channels included Frowny Face, Holy See. 70% of the knights in the Holy Knight Academy were holy knights trained by the Holy See. Of course, in addition to training clergy members, the Holy See would also train some knights with unique characteristics. Association knights who were born in noble families could be directly sent to the ability-type associations that were capable of training knights, such as the Magic Association, the Warrior Association, the Nature Association, etc. It should be noted here that in the decades before the establishment of the National Royal Knight Academy, various associations were used to train trainee knights. The newcomers would choose to join different associations for training according to their own characteristics and preferences. However, the association system was not perfect, and the associations were independent from each other, which led to many deaths of newcomers caused by competition. Moreover, the individual associations paid more attention to the training of outstanding people, forming a more serious hierarchy situation internally. Some newcomers with mediocre talents could not get any resources at all and could only give up on becoming a knight in the end. After the establishment of the National Royal Knight Academy, these associations were still maintained, and some of the nobles who had connections with them would still choose to follow the path of the association. However, the Holy See and the association only took up 15% of the total number of people in the knight election. Furthermore, the training of the association was going downhill with the passage of time. As long as they were not the stubborn ones who stuck to the rules, most nobles would send their descendants to the Knight Academy. However, this year was a little different. With the return of Alex and Malone, the mysterious area under the stairs of Hades was opened. A group of underground personnel, who had no identity registration in the Holy City, was officially revealed to the public. Tomorrow, I will go to the Knight headquarters to register for the Knight election. Why don't I accompany her tonight? Shall we go together tomorrow? Also, I'm willing to tell you the secret of the broken seed before the election. Han Dong waited until Mia hatched from the cocoon before returning to the city with her. Currently, the two of them were standing under the dark moon tower. Mia was leaning on Han Dong's chest, her fingers constantly moving around his chest. After the broken seed, Mia was obviously different from before. Mia, who used to need half a mask to seal and suppress the spider curse, had completely taken off the mask. Her face was completely exposed, with a trace of beauty and unique temptation in its exquisiteness. At the same time, Mia's pupils were completely dyed purple due to the broken seed. Her body proportions were more perfect due to the insect transformation. She had a slim waist, a perky butt and long legs. If the readers were foot fetishes, there would be an additional 6 long legs to satisfy their visual need. Due to the broken seed incident, Mia was even more infatuated with Han Dong. Let's talk about it after we meet Mr. Black and White. Since Commander Malone returned, the Holy City seems to have changed a little. Okay. Stargazing room. Naturally, Mr. Black and White called the two of them over to explain that the Hades Stairs had reopened after 50 years and was completely open to the public. This was also a major decision made by the 13 Knights, the royal family, and the Holy See during the meeting. The great expedition was approaching. The dark side of the Holy City would be revealed to the world for the first time. The Stairs of Hades, the dark side. As expected, there are still hidden organizations at the bottom of the Holy City. Mr. Black and White explained. The dark side of the Holy City is much bigger than you think. In the beginning, the Holy City chose to build on a huge mine area because copper could drive away life outside the city. The first 30 years were spent mining the copper ore in the underground area. After the mining was completed, the underground area was not completely sealed off. After some far-sighted counselors suggested it, the Supreme Council decided to keep half of the underground area and officially launched the Dark Side Plan. It was also a major security measure for the Holy City. The main bases of the Hell Knights, Black Rose Knights, and Final Knights were all set up below. The headquarters of the Night Watchers was also built in the underground area. The purpose of the existence of the Dark Side was to secretly ensure the safety of the Holy City. Many things that might affect the stability of the Holy City but were inconvenient to be dealt with through official channels would be dealt with by the Dark Side. Because the Dark Side dealt with things cleanly and efficiently, it helped the Holy City solve many problems and was directly recognized by the Central Council. As time passed, the underground area became bigger and bigger. A few major knight regiments jointly proposed to establish a training organization in the underground area similar to the National Royal Knight Academy, but it would not openly recruit apprentice knights. Only apprentice knights who met the dark side characteristics and qualified talent would receive an invitation. Before the underground area was completely open to the public, apprentice knights who trained and learned in the underground area would be given 2 choices once they graduated. Outstanding personnel would be directly recruited into the knight regiments related to the underground area. Most of the personnel would become the reserve army of the Night Watchers and work for the Holy City in the dark. As long as they performed well and received permission, they could also become official Night Watchers and join the Night Regiments. Currently, the dark side was completely open to the public. This year's night election, this group of students who were training underground will also join. The competition is very big, so you must be prepared. If you can't be selected to join the night regiments, it will be very disadvantageous for your future development. Chapter 519. Dark Side Han Dong was not surprised by this information at all. Han Dong himself would build underground fortifications in his manor, let alone the Holy City. From many details, Han Dong could guess the existence of the dark side. After all, in such a world, the Holy City had to ensure absolute stability. Many troublesome things had to be dealt with quickly in secret. Moreover, the higher-ups were also aware of the existence of spies outside the Holy City. This required them to jump out into the open and investigate in the dark. However, Han Dong did not expect this. In the dark side, there was a school institution, similar to the National Royal Knight Academy. It specialized in cultivating special talents who were active in the dark. Mr. Black and White's reminder to a certain extent meant that the students below must be unique and not easy to deal with. Okay, I'll be careful. Next time, I'll take the opportunity to go underground and take a look when I meet with Commander Malone. You have to be careful when you go underground for the first time. The dark side is independent of the Holy City to a certain extent. It is not bound by the laws of the Holy City, nor is it directly controlled by the Supreme Council. The humans living below will not care about your identity. However, in such an area full of disorder and chaos, there are unexpected opportunities. Many rare materials that cannot be bought in the Holy City may be sold in the dark side. Now that the dark side is completely open to the outside world, there will naturally be more opportunities. Okay, at this time, Mr. Black and White pushed a cocktail in front of Han Dong. The election is near. Have you chosen a knight order in your heart? Mia answered first. I'm not sure yet. If any knight wants me, I'm willing to go. However, the purpose of Mr. Black and White's question was obviously directed at Han Dong. It was up to Han Dong to answer. In the Great Betrayer incident half a year ago, 2 high-ranking knight orders had already extended an olive branch to Han Dong, especially Malone, who openly wanted to recruit Han Dong into the Hell Knight. I'm willing to listen to all your arrangements. On this matter, Han Dong did not insist on joining a knight order. Han Dong was indebted to Mr. Black and White. As long as Mr. Black and White let him stay in the Knights of Plague, no matter what benefits Commander Malone offered, Han Dong would not waver in the slightest. I don't have any special plans for you. Just follow your heart and make your choice. The Hell Knights and the Final Knights were both good choices. However, there is one thing I need to remind you of. Before you make a decision, you must understand the characteristics and rules of the 13th Knight Regiment. You must make sure that the internal system of the 13th Knight Regiment is in line with your personality and goals, and whether it will limit your development. This year's Knight election was definitely the grandest in history, and the 13 Knight Orders would definitely give out more conditions than the previous years. Fight for the top spot in the election and fight for the biggest opportunity. I will definitely do it. At this point, Mr. Black and White's summons ended. Han Dong also felt a bit strange. He thought that Mr. Black and White would ask him to stay in the Knights of Plague, but during the conversation, he did not give any request at all. After stepping down from the Dark Moon Tower, a trace of curiosity flashed in Han Dong's eyes. Mia, since the dark side is completely open to the public, do you want to go take a look together? Sure. As long as I'm with you, I can go anywhere. However, I've heard from Teacher Witch that the dark side is much more chaotic than we think. Before we go, we'd better disguise our identities in advance. How about we pretend to be a couple? It's better for you to hide your appearance. Han Dong's bird's beak costume was used to hide his identity time and time again. Mia could only pout and cover her body with the cloak, only revealing her purple lips. She silently followed behind Han Dong. The only entrance to the dark side was the Hades staircase. It was not together with the staircase of the 3 gods. Instead, it was hidden somewhere in the Moslabi River, which was the border between the civilian area and the inner area. Rumor had it that there was a second city wall hidden in the Moslabi River. Once the outer city wall was breached, the civilian area would fall. The second city wall would immediately be raised and the defense line would shrink inward to ensure the safety of the inner area. After the council decided that the dark side was completely open to the public, many river crossers wearing skull masks and black cloaks appeared in the riverside area. They were responsible for transporting people to the entrance to the dark side. One had to pay 10 copper coins to cross the river each time they boarded the boat. This was a large sum of money for the average person. The purpose of such a high fee was to ensure that the people who went to the dark side had at least a certain amount of spending power. The wooden boat gradually sank while it was sliding. The enchantment that came with the hull enveloped the passengers and separated the river from the outside of the enchantment. The rumor about the second city wall is true. The bottom of the river was an all-metal structure with a large number of steam-driven devices embedded between the walls. Once activated, the city wall at the bottom of the river would quickly rise. The entrance to the dark side also existed at the bottom of the river. Obviously, the second city wall buried deep at the bottom of the river was also the underground city wall of the dark side, to ensure that the underground area was not invaded by foreign objects. When the body of the river crossers collided with the sand wall at the bottom of the river, it immediately penetrated the wall due to the compatibility of the enchantment and sailed into a small river in a cave. Not far away was the end of the small river and a staircase leading down. It was one of the parts of the Hades staircase that led to the secret dark side area. They went down the stairs and officially entered the dark side. When the magnificent underground city was completely revealed, Han Dong and Mia were both stunned at the same time. The second city wall, at the bottom of the Moslabi River in the inner city, was a copper wall that surrounded the underground city. The total height of the underground space reached 300 meters. It built a city similar to the city of the dead described in Homer's epic poem. On every street in the city there was a special building, pillar building. A cylindrical tower-like building with more beam pillars or pointed ribs. The pillar building was far higher than other buildings in the underground area. As the tallest building in the underground city, it was directly connected to the ground. It served as a bird's-eye viewpoint for the knights to observe and investigate the overall situation of the underground area. It also served as a support pillar to ensure that the holy city at the top would not collapse downward when it suffered a strong impact. Such pillar building was evenly distributed and there were nearly 1,000 of them. The number of other buildings in the dark side city did not exceed 3 floors. After all, there were not many humans living below, and low-level buildings were also convenient for management, because the dark side was open to the outside world. On the streets paved with cold black stones, there were a large number of outsiders wearing cloaks and face scarves or masks to cover their faces. The underground city, which was originally slightly silent, became lively. Because it was not restricted by the rules of the holy city, many special items would be sold here. Dear, shall we go there and take a look? The election is coming. Maybe we can buy some powerful items down here. Mia stared at the shop at the end of the street named Market Entrance, 7 Chapter 520. Mr. Black and White asked me not to sell the antidepressants in the Holy City for the time being due to the side effect. The dark side is open. Maybe I can find business opportunities here. Han Dong always had 2 bottles of medicine in his pocket, ready to sell them at any time. At Mia's suggestion, he came to the Market Entrance, 7 at the end of the street. It looked like a shop, but it was actually one of the channels to the dark side market. 2 muscular guards wearing white masks stood at the door. Their bodies were particularly strong due to the stimulation of some kind of medicine. When Han Dong walked forward, the 2 guards stretched out their terrifying muscular arms that were about the thickness of an ordinary person's torso at the same time, completely blocking the entrance. Before entering the market, you need to verify your purchasing ability. Please show me the balance in your personal vault. He lifted the sleeve of his robe, revealing a thin arm with a clockwork device. The small internal gears rotated quickly, and the small metal keys slowly organized the corresponding vault copper coin reserves. 12100. This was not a small number. The guards immediately stepped aside. Please come in. After passing through a deep passage inside the building, Han Dong officially arrived at the largest trading market on the dark side, or even the largest scale in the Holy City. It was not regulated by the market. It was not subject to any sales restrictions. As long as it did not affect the basic order of the market, anything could be sold here. The vendors on the roadside were all wrapped in protective robes. The products were placed on the ground with very simple descriptions. Secret medicines refined with private formulas, strange props brought out of the destiny space, chaotic materials obtained from killing creatures outside the city, and some treasure map fragments whose authenticity could not be confirmed at all. While walking through the market, there was even a woman who deliberately revealed her thin waist. When she passed by Han Dong with a strong smell of perfume, she gave him a small card. Professional sales of humanoid maids from outside the city. Skeleton woman, harpy, skate, merman, and so on. All the sales maids have been purified by the prayers of the holy priest, and the residual pollution in their bodies has been basically removed. Welcome to our shop to experience it. You can pay for it after you are satisfied. Note: humanoid maids only have underground temporary identity cards and cannot be brought to the surface. As expected, it's really chaotic down there. There are actually people doing this kind of business with living creatures outside the city. Thinking about it, some wild monsters and evil creatures outside the city would also have special shops or stalls to sell them. The boss of this business must have a close relationship with the knights. The knights who go out to investigate capture some weak living creatures and bring them back to the city. They hand them over to the boss in exchange for a certain amount of copper coins. The boss then sells them at a high price to the customers in the underground market. Not long after, Han Dong passed by a relatively large stall selling live animals. Small monsters were locked up in iron bars with enchantments to prevent pollution from leaking out. The boss was an experienced butcher. As long as someone paid, they could be killed on the spot. As long as these wild monsters were handled properly, they could be taken back and processed into high-quality food, which would be a great supplement for night. The price of a normal monster was around 700 gold coins. Even if the price was so high, some nobles would still buy it back and ask chefs to process it for their descendants to eat. This would strengthen their physique and lay a good foundation for a knight's physique. Han Dong was naturally not interested in these things. As long as he wanted to, the crowmen tribe could catch a bunch of monsters. As for the opposite sex, even if Han Dong didn't like Mia, he still had the octopus lady and the bloodline maid. Of course, Han Dong didn't seem to think too much about it. Coming to such an unrestricted and abundant market, Han Dong already had an idea in his mind. He even planned to invest all the research funds Demps gave him. The goal was very straightforward: limbs. That's right. With Han Dong's seed breaking, the cell weight value had been comprehensively increased. Before the seed breaking, the cell weight value was 300, of which 280 had been used. After the seed breaking, the upper limit directly doubled, reaching a full 600 points. Such a huge increase in the weight value could allow Han Dong to carry out large-scale changes in his body. As for the source of limbs, Han Dong was still more inclined to the fate monsters. For example, the undead sacrifice arm brought a considerable increase in strength and corresponded to a profound historical background. Some of the characteristics of the fate monsters were stronger than those outside the city. Han Dong had already formulated a perfect use plan for the extra weight limit after the seed breaking. 1. Upgrade the faceless skull to LV3. According to the system prompt in the laboratory, the upgrade required 150 points of weight and a large amount of cell essence, good quality. The good quality, marked here, meant that all the cell essence collected by Han Dong before could not be used. It was necessary to go to the corresponding fate space of the night to collect cell essence, good quality. The faceless skull was the foundation of Han Dong's survival, so 150 points of weight must be reserved. 2. Limbs. After reserving enough weight for the head, the remaining weight space would be used to graft limbs. Mobility was fully improved due to the integration of the crowmen. Han Dong temporarily did not consider the problem of his legs. The next step of limb replacement was more inclined to the torso. After all, the current body relied on the G-virus attached to the right arm and the plague constitution to support itself. In fact, Han Dong's own torso was extremely fragile. Moreover, after officially entering the realm of death, Han Dong needed a strong enough torso, otherwise, his body would not be able to support itself before the enemy died. 3. Growth Reserve. Whether it was the G-arm or the sacrificial arm, which was taken from the immortal sacrifice Imhotep, second stage, both were capable of growth. Once they grew, the weight of the arm would increase accordingly. If the weight value was full, the growth of the limbs would be limited. Therefore, Han Dong needed to reserve an additional 50 points. In summary, Han Dong still had 120 points of weight value at his disposal, which could be used to replace the torso. Since the underground market sold everything, Han Dong intended to use the rest of the day to stroll around here. Maybe there would be an unexpected harvest. However, a few hours later, after walking around for a long time, Mia spent 100 copper coins to buy a bag of cursed items, ready to take back and refine the curse essence for her own absorption. Han Dong did not see any vendors selling the limbs of the creatures of destiny. Can I only go back to the old way, and go back to buy the limbs of the creatures of destiny? Uncomfortable. If there is a ready-made one, it would be convenient and cheap. At this time, the two gradually went deeper into the market and came to the central area. A large billboard was erected on the side of the road. Because the dark side was officially open to the public, a large-scale auction would be held here. The slogan mentioned that at least a complete set of epic-grade equipment would appear in the auction. At present, there were still a large number of outsiders waiting outside the auction venue. Admission required at least 5,000 copper coins per person. Chapter 521. This large-scale underground auction is sponsored by the Hell Knights and the Final Knights. Please follow the basic rules set by the auctioneer. Han Dong pulled Mia to the entrance of the auction hall. The person in charge of the entry inspection was actually an official knight who was not weak. The back of his hand was imprinted with the skull in a hood. His cold and gloomy eyes stared straight at Han Dong, as if he could directly see through his character and confirm that he would not cause trouble in the auction hall. After verifying that there was no problem with the amount of money he brought, Han Dong led Mia into the auction hall. Unexpectedly, the knight's voice appeared directly in Han Dong's mind. Captain Alex seems to want to see you. When the auction is over, please come to the territory of the Final Knight. Someone will naturally come to meet you then. Okay. Han Dong was a little embarrassed. During the Great Betrayer incident half a year ago, the Grim Reaper captain did ask Han Dong to find time to visit the Final Knight. However, Han Dong considered Mr. Black and White and did not go to see any of the captains. He did not expect that after half a year, the Grim Reaper still cared about him. Anyway, Mr. Black and White won't force me to stay in the Knights of Plague. After the auction is over, I'll directly visit the two captains in the underground area. I hope Captain Malone won't blame me for not looking for him for half a year. Han Dong still felt a little guilty. After all, Malone was his savior and had taken care of him in hell. The ways of the world were what Han Dong was not good at. As a teacher, he was the same when he was alive. In less than an hour, the auction hall was already full. The official knights were responsible for maintaining order at the scene. Any participant who dared to challenge the rules of the auction would be forcibly expelled and restricted from entering the market area. Those who violated the rules might be directly imprisoned by the knight. Wow. Basically, everyone here is an official knight. Mia's spider sense was quite sensitive. Basically, at least 70% of the participants were official knight. The dark side area is open to the public. It was equivalent to having a brand new channel to obtain powerful equipment and items. Naturally, the knights swarmed over. Most of the knights were willing to exchange the money they earned from daily missions and investigations outside the city for equipment that could improve their strength and survival rate. Furthermore, many knights aren't as lucky as us, being able to obtain a suitable main weapon before graduation. Hee. Speaking of weapons, Mia could not help but touch the demon blade hidden under her cloak. Ever since she obtained this demonic blade that was completely compatible with her attributes, Mia had devoted a large portion of her energy to cultivating her blade techniques. Through the witch's internal connections, she was recommended to the Crusader army for special training on the blade technique. After all, the witch did not have a good relationship with Mr. Black and White. Since she could not compete with Mr. Black and White, she could only compete with her students. At present, Mia's level was a secret. Only in the upcoming night election would Mia fully display her strength. The venue was sealed off. The auction officially began. Accompanied by a burst of white fog from the ground, a mysterious auctioneer appeared in the fog. The back of his hand was imprinted with a skull in a hood. He was still a member of the Final Knights, and his status seemed to be quite high. This auction will be hosted by me, Saguranzer. I hope that all the knights who came from the surface will give me face and strictly follow the basic rules of the auction venue. Mia immediately revealed a shocked expression and sighed as softly as possible. The Undertaker, a Saguranzer, the third captain of the Final Knights. The third captain, Han Dong, was not very clear about the internal position planning of the knights. However, based on the situation of the Behemoth Knights in the past, the captain seemed to be a high-ranking person second only to the vice-captain. This auction is jointly sponsored by the Final Knights and the Hell Knights next door. The main purpose is to fully share the resources of the underground area, providing more opportunities for the knights on the surface to obtain materials, items, and equipment. Of course, the items we provide for the auction are things that the knights fought for with their lives. Everyone, please don't be stingy with your copper coins. Being able to buy an item in the auction is definitely a profit for you. Good. This auction has a total of 10 items on display. As the external publicity said, the final item will be a complete Epic Destiny equipment. It belongs to a knight who was forcibly executed outside the city due to deep infection during an investigation outside the city. Although the other auction items are slightly inferior, they are all special treasures that can't be bought on the surface. Next, let's take a look at the first auction item. A jade pendant appeared in the old man's hand. Heart-cleansing jade, a unique purple color, accessory-type item, no damage. Presumably, the knights sitting here can feel a sense of cleansing their hearts. I won't explain the details in detail. The starting price is 3,000 copper coins, each increment is at least 500. Han Dong stared at the jade, guessing that its general function should be to protect the soul and stabilize the consciousness. For Han Dong, who has the laughter attribute and the faceless head, it is basically useless. However, such an item was finally sold for 8,000 copper coins, and was won by a knight who majored in the physical body and had weak spiritual defense. From his smiling expression, the 8,000 copper coins were really worth it. He bought the heart protection equipment that he had always wanted. His survival rate was greatly increased. One by one, the high-quality items were displayed. All of them were materials or finished equipment. There was no limb that Han Dong wanted. Participating in the auction could only be regarded as an eye-opener. The final epic equipment made Han Dong shocked. Most of the knights present were also stunned for a long time when the epic equipment was displayed. After all, epic equipment was too rare and had a powerful ability. Evil Consequence, a dark bracer, was sealed in a transparent coffin. A strange ghost head was faintly discernible in the coffin. The most frightening thing was that the bracer was already filled with rotten flesh. It seemed that after wearing this bracer, it couldn't be taken off, even after death. Only when the bracer found its next owner would it fall off from the wrist of the previous owner. Not allowing the auctioneer to introduce more, someone directly bid a high price of 80,000 copper coins, and won the bracer, making the knights present confused. At this point, the auction was over. Just when the participating knights left with a confused look, the auctioneer Saguranzi also showed a strange smile, staring straight at Han Dong, hinting him to stay. After everyone left, the auctioneer whispered. Really interesting. A trainee knight, after receiving the invitation of the leader, unexpectedly did not respond for half a year, worthy of being the core of the great betrayer incident. Do you have time now? If you have time, please be sure to come with me to the inner sanctum of the knights, even if you bring your little girlfriend. Okay. Captain Sagaranzi, please lead the way. Chapter 522. Mia, who was following beside him, was dumbfounded. She didn't know that Han Dong had such a close relationship with Grim Reaper. He was actually asked to meet Grim Reaper in private. Mia had only heard that during the Great Betrayer incident, Grim Reaper Alex had arrived at the critical moment and decisively killed the big hybrid demon that was trying to cut off all means of retreat. Now, funeral bearer Sagran had personally invited Han Dong to the inner sanctum of the knights and directly said that he wanted to meet Grim Reaper. Following behind a group of knights that emitted death aura, Mia quietly asked as they passed through the market. Nicholas, how did you get to know Grim Reaper? He's the current #1 person in the Holy City. It was an accident at the city gate, and I stood him up for more than half a year. Mia, if you're interested in the final nights, you can use this opportunity to let Grim Reaper know more about you. No. I want to join the same Knight Order as you. Moreover, it was rumored that the internal rules of the final nights were the strictest among the 13 Knight Orders. Even the formal rules of the Black Rose Knights and the Lionheart Knights couldn't compare to them. The members of the final nights would often be asked to carry out extremely risky missions and feel the pressure of death. To be honest, I don't want to go to such a dangerous Knight Order. Also, Mia slowly spat out a small spider from her mouth and crawled into Han Dong's ear. She secretly sent him a voice transmission. She secretly whispered, "It's rumored that Grim Reaper's leader would often call the knights to his room in the middle of the night. Many of the knights became dispirited and completely became Grim Reaper's puppets. It's so scary." Where did you hear this rumor from? Don't people often run to the Adventurers Guild and randomly join a team that's short of people to do missions? There are all kinds of people, so naturally, I'll hear some rumors. Oh, so you heard it when you were scamming people. How am I scamming people? Those people are all willing. This isn't scamming. Don't mention these things in front of Grim Reaper. I heard that Grim Reaper's leader is quite narrow-minded. Han Dong only smiled inwardly and didn't give much of an answer. As the corporal stepped out of the market area, he passed through many streets and slowly came to an area with almost no tourists. There were at least 8 pillars nearby, and there were people monitoring the situation on this street. From this street onwards, they could be considered to have stepped into the territory of the Knights of Destiny. Unlike the headquarters of the Knights on the surface of the Holy City, the Knights of Destiny did not have a special area that belonged to them. There were no walls or special buildings to mark the area. They only chose to combine 3 connected streets as the area for the Knights. The people who lived in the houses on both sides of the street were all Knights of the Doomed Knight. They stared coldly at Han Dong and the others who were walking on the street. Nicholas. A familiar voice came from the side. Senior Lunz, so you live down here too? The newcomer was the necromancer, Lunz. After experiencing the Scarlet Mountain Villa incident, Lunz no longer had any prejudice against Han Dong. Corporal Sagaranzi. Lunz greeted the corporal respectfully as he walked over. Luanze, since you know him, you should bring them to the commander. The commander is looking for this kid for an urgent matter. You must deliver it. Yes. The old man seemed to have other matters to attend to. He turned around and disappeared into the white mist. Why are you with Corporal Sagaranzi? We were going to the underground area to buy something. Who knew that the corporal would bring us here? Han Dong smiled awkwardly. I knew that the commander would definitely look for you. After all, you carry a unique death aura. It's different from all the other knights who specialize in death. You can consider joining us. Although the Knights of Destiny have stricter management than the other knight groups, we also give the knights the most opportunities. If Mr. Black and White doesn't force you, you can consider joining us. Lund saw Han Dong's performance. It was too shocking for a trainee knight to kill a mature hybrid demon alone. Of course, Lund and the others were given the strictest order by Mr. Black and White to not mention this to anyone. Okay, I'll think about it. The executive headquarters of the Knights of Destiny was located at the intersection of 3 Street. It was a dark building with a strong Gothic style. It was about 10 stories high. Vertical, dark pillars were arranged neatly on the walls of the building. The gradual door, pushed inward layer by layer, had a strong pull on the people who entered. There were many glass prints that represented death inside the building. They could go to the upper floor through the folding stairs on both sides. The closer they got to the top floor, the thicker the death aura flowing between the stairs. The iron door of the office, which was engraved with the image of the Grim Reaper with a sickle, slowly opened as the 3 of them approached. The inside of the office was filled with death aura. It was impossible to see the inside of the office. As the 3 of them stepped in, a voice with death aura came from all directions. I asked you to come and see me, but you waited for half a year. How interesting. Haha. Han Dong knew that it was inappropriate to say anything at this time. He could only smile awkwardly. Then, the death aura in the air retracted into the Grim Reaper's body. A spacious office with black as its main color was revealed. The bookshelves, pillars, desks, and some decorative lines were all made of obsidian. It should be noted that there were a lot of bookshelves in the Grim Reaper's office, but they were not used to store books. They were filled with all kinds of models of creatures related to death. All the creatures that the Grim Reaper came into contact with were related to death, whether it was in the Destiny space or outside the city. The Grim Reaper would use his consciousness projection to ask the craftsman to create a 110 model and display it in his bookshelf. Due to the exquisite craftsman's skills, these models were all more than 99% restored and were extremely exquisite. This office was simply a heaven for hardcore otakus. On the Grim Reaper's obsidian desk, there was a large-scale 1:4 model. It was the life-form, hybrid demon, fallen Cirrus, that the Grim Reaper had killed when he broke the seed. It was a special hybrid demon whose head was wrapped in bandages and whose body joints were cut open. It was connected to the broken body through the power of death. Grim Reaper Alex, who was sitting at the desk, did not wear his usual hood. On his sunken and slightly pale cheeks, his eyes that were filled with death aura were staring at Han Dong. This uncle looked a little handsome. Just as Han Dong was trying to find a suitable excuse to explain why he was delayed for half a year, the Grim Reaper suddenly took the initiative to ask, I heard from Saguranik that he met you at the auction. Is there something you want? Chapter 523. Han Dong thought that it would be a very awkward meeting. Unexpectedly, the leader of Death God didn't care about the past and brought the topic into a more interesting area. Han Dong hurriedly continued. I just heard from Mr. Black and White that the dark side was completely open to the public, so I asked my friends to come here to stroll around the market and accidentally bumped into the upcoming auction. However, whether it was the market or the auction, I didn't find what I wanted. Death God was a little surprised. He was very clear about the underground city. The supplies below could definitely satisfy all the needs of a normal knight. Not to mention that there are many hidden treasures that can't be bought on the surface. This auction has epic equipment on display, in addition to all kinds of high-level equipment and materials. If these are not to your liking, it seems that the student raised by the crow is really picky. What do you want? Even if it's a death attribute equipment, I can still find it for you. Han Dong was secretly happy, but he pretended to be calm. I don't have much need for equipment. The main purpose of coming to the underground area this time is to see if there are any special limbs for sale. Hearing the word limbs, Death God seemed to be a little interested. Limbs? The dark side of the market should have a lot of living creatures outside the city for sale, right? Han Dong explained, "The limbs I need are very special. They must come from a powerful life form in the destiny realm, and I have certain requirements for the attributes and quality of the limbs. To be honest, I'm going to use it for my own use. It seems that there is no market for this kind of thing. No one will spend destiny points to bring the limbs out." Han Dong slowly led the topic to a side that was beneficial to him. Death God nodded slightly. His eyes filled with death aura seemed to see through some of Han Dong's attributes. No wonder that Crow chose you as a student, so there is this special layer. I don't like to beat around the bush, and I don't want to waste time. I asked you to come here to see me alone. I hope that you can choose to join my night group in the night election. As long as you can give me a definite answer, I can use my authority to let the knights who recently went to the Destiny realm bring you a satisfactory limb. This, Han Dong didn't expect Death God to directly ask for his needs. He was too lazy to talk about useless things. It was a simple logic. I'll give you what you want. You will join my order. The Grim Reaper leader continued to give Han Dong preferential treatment. Furthermore, as long as you enter my knight regiment as one of the top 3, I will grant you complete freedom. Normally, you will not be restricted by the rules of the Order of Knights. You can leave the Order of Knights at will. You do not need to undergo the usual knight training. You only need to report back in time when the Order of Knights summons you. Your relationship with Crow will not be affected in any way, and you will be given absolute freedom in your daily life. As soon as he said this, even Luan Zhe, who came with him, looked at him enviously. In the past, Luan Zhe had been personally selected by the commander when he was ranked 10. Even though he had certain privileges, it could not compare to Han Dong's freedom. Can I ask Commander Alex to give me 2 days to consider? According to the agreement, I still have to meet with Captain Malone. What happened at the South City Gate last time was all thanks to the 2 of you. Apart from that, I once met Captain Malone in the Destiny realm. He has helped me in other ways, so I have to pay him a visit. You don't have to go to Malone. The Hell Knights are not suitable for you. Your domain of death is unique. Only I can give you the greatest help. Cough, cough, cough. Suddenly, Grim Reaper seemed to realize that he had lost his composure. It was not good for him to strongly request Han Dong to join his Order of Knights. Moreover, the Parliament had made it clear that new knights had absolute freedom of choice. Alright, you can think about it. Speaking of which, you haven't looked for Malone in the past 6 months, right? No. You chose to meet me first before meeting Malone? Alright. Give me an answer as soon as possible. If you have any other conditions, you can tell me. At this moment, Han Dong really felt the narrow-mindedness that Mia had mentioned earlier. If Han Dong met Malone in the past 6 months but did not meet Alex, he would definitely be held a grudge against him. Alright. An hour later. It was located in the depths of the underground area. It was separated from the outside world by a unique courtyard structure. It was decorated with lava, dark runes, and various skeletons to decorate the territory of the Hell Knights. Due to the return of Commander Malone, the king's room in the deepest layer was reopened. Currently, Han Dong was bringing Mia along to visit Commander Malone. Soon, the topic of conversation was about the upcoming night election. Not bad. Alex actually gave you such a big concession and gave you such a big advantage. I'll give you another epic-level material on top of his request. I will not restrict your freedom at all. You only need to have a name in the Hell Knights. Moreover, I can provide a unique training ground for your Hell Monk. Alright, let me tell you a secret. I graduated from the same batch as Alex. He has always been the first and I second. However, a strange genius like him also has a certain quirk. I don't know if you have heard, but Alex would occasionally call a knight to his office in the middle of the night. You can tell what he wants to do just by looking at his bottom. Haha, Han Dong did not know what to say. In the situation where both sides wanted him. Actually, the Ultimate Knights was a better choice. Han Dong had just stepped into the death domain, and had many questions that he did not understand. Perhaps he could find a way to ask the Crow God. However, the best way was to have someone to guide him directly. Suddenly, Commander Malone's strong arm was placed on Han Dong's shoulder. "What are you hesitating for? If you want, I can also recruit your female companion into the Hell Knights and let her enjoy similar treatment." Han Dong calmed down and said seriously, "Commander Malone must have been given all kinds of preferential treatment by the other commanders in the previous night election. It must be difficult for you to make a decision. Commander Malone, please give me a chance to choose. When the night election comes, I will make my choice in the venue." Malone was easier to talk to than the Death God. Moreover, he had a good impression of Han Dong. On his rough face full of stubble, he immediately showed a hearty smile. "I'm sorry, from the talent and uniqueness I saw in you, I really can't bear to let you go to another night regiment to compete with me for resources. That's right, which night regiment you join is a lifelong event for you. Even if I don't restrict your freedom, you will slowly be assimilated by the night regiment and your style of doing things will change. I look forward to your performance in the night conference." "Thank you for your understanding, Commander Malone. However, I need to remind you that there are many interesting contestants in this conference. In the case where outside the city ability can't be used, it may be difficult to compete for the top 3 based on what you learned in the Holy City. At present, I have a very powerful Hellboy in my hands. He is a little guy who was personally trained by the deputy commander during the time I was not in the night regiment. Be careful in the night conference. The elites trained by my Hell Knights have an unimaginable threat." "Yes. Goodbye, Commander Malone." Chapter 524. This was his first trip to the underground city, and he returned empty-handed. Business-like Limbs did not have any sales even in the dark side, so he could only go for the custom-made route. In addition, he was forcefully invited by the 2 leaders, and he could not find a suitable market for the anti-pressure potion. As for the 2 leaders' warm invitation, Han Dong did not give a clear reply. He planned to make his choice during the night election. Since he did not give a reply, the 2 leaders would not give him a reward in advance. The Limbs could only be delayed until after the election. There was another point that needed to be mentioned. Although the 1-year cooldown period of the Destiny space was over, Han Dong could not enter it. The Holy City had a clear rule. Due to the night stage, the Destiny space would have a fundamental change. Not only the choice of Destiny events, the way of clearing the stage and the specifications of events would change, but the difficulty would also be far greater than before. New knights who had just broken their seed were forbidden to enter the Destiny space. They had to wait until the end of the night election and join the corresponding night group. Then, through the strict Destiny screening mechanism, a night group that met the requirements would be allowed to enter the Destiny space at a specific time. Otherwise, it would be a huge loss for the Holy City if the knights that were trained with great difficulty died in the Destiny space. Therefore, Han Dong basically cut off all the ways to obtain Limbs before the election. He could only participate in the election in his current state. However, even if it was just G-Arm and Sandarm, it was already beyond the scope of a normal knight. Besides, Han Dong was a dual knight. The in-depth development of the G-Virus made Han Dong's close combat ability not weak. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was a triple knight. The next day, the registration for this year's night election would be carried out. All those who met the criteria would have a day to go to the Knight headquarters for individual registration. At the same time, the basic information of the registrant would be detected through basic equipment and recorded in the file of each person. It would be used for the preliminary selection of the night election. Originally, he wanted to ask Abel, Demps, and Won Lee to go together. Who knew that these 3 people would choose to go through the back door? Their bosses directly registered and divided them into relatively less competitive group. They were separated from the other strong people and did not need to come to the scene to register. On Han Dong's side, Mr. Black and White did not look for him at all. Han Dong naturally didn't want to disturb the teacher, so he went to register with Mia. The Roy Knight headquarters was located in the center of the third floor of the Holy City. It was the inspection office of the 13 Knight. Even if a regiment commander made a mistake, as long as the headquarters had evidence, they could immediately detain the regiment commander. The door with the relief of a white horse and 2 swords was opened to the outside. Knights with apprentice knight waist tags are allowed to enter the knight headquarters. Every year, the number of knights who could successfully break the seed was usually about 100, but this year was a little different. Because of the opening of the dark side, all the people who had broken the seed came here for secret training. When Han Dong and Mia stepped through the door, they could immediately identify the students from the underground through their auras. Even though they were in the absolutely safe headquarters of the Knights, this group of students who had lived underground for many years were still used to using cloaks to cover their whole body. When they moved, they deliberately restrained their breath and lowered their footstep. Among them, there were also some students who exuded powerful auras. At this moment, an elegant and quiet female staff member came in front of Han Dong and Zhang Zian and briefly explained the registration process. Before registration, there will be a basic test. Due to the difference in individual specializations, please choose the basic test according to your strength. We will arrange your groups in the night conference based on the items you have selected and the test scores you have received. Please do not choose a test that you are not good at. Once you cannot meet the basic standards, you will not be able to get the right to participate in the conference. 5 different types of cards were held in the hands of the staff member. Swords and axes symbolized fighting. Books symbolized magic. Dog heads symbolized beast taming. Eyes symbolized perception. Gears symbolized manufacturing. In fact, it was a test after simplifying the 5 basic professions. However, there was no mandatory requirement for the profession to correspond to the test. I choose this one. Mia was confident in her swordsmanship, so she chose the fighting test first. Then I choose this one. Considering the follow-up grouping, Han Dong did not choose the magic test. Instead, he drew a card with eyes printed on it and participated in the perception test. Different testers, please follow the road signs in the hall and go to different test areas. Remember, do not make a loud noise in the night headquarters, and do not allow fighting here. Those who violate the rules will be severely punished. In serious cases, you will be directly deprived of your future knight status. Okay, my dear, you have to do well. After the registration, remember to meet me in the hall. Mia had not fought with real swords for a long time. She was ready to fully demonstrate her swordsmanship in the basic test to let others know that students from the mystery branch also had strong close combat abilities. Han Dong did not care. He would act according to the situation. Following the guidance of the road signs, they entered a room with a large perception ceiling array. The 5 senses were fully suppressed by the array. Almost everything in the dark room could be seen clearly. The test requirements were simple. It required one to find a special chameleon that was randomly generated and hidden in different positions in the large test room. Currently, there were 4 graduates in front of Han Dong. Grim Hill, all the chameleon positions have been marked. The first stage is complete. Time taken, 1 minute and 18 seconds. In the second stage, please find the ghosts wandering in the current area and make them appear within 1 minute. Spirits? Student Grimm, who was undergoing the test, majored in control. After the seed was broken, the more common talent tree, druid, was produced. It could enhance one's senses by merging with nature. However, she could not see the so-called spirits at all. After a minute of testing, she did not find anything. She could only end the test with a puzzled face. She reluctantly stayed here and continued to watch other people's tests. She wanted to see where the so-called spirits were hiding. However, the 3 students finished their tests one after another. Through their different perception methods, they all passed the first stage of the chameleon test. However, they could not find the wandering spirits in the second stage. The 4 students who had just broken the seed gathered together to discuss in private. They suspected that the tester was deliberately playing tricks on them. After some discussion, they all stayed in the test room. They planned to wait until no one was testing before they asked about the spirit. At this moment, Warren Nicholas, the first stage is complete. Time taken, 1 second. Chapter 525. Inside the perceptual testing room. The perceptual suppression array set up inside was not at the same level as the 5 senses deprivation released by Demp's mother. It had no effect on Han Dong at all. When he stepped into the room, Han Dong could clearly see the chameleon stuck to the dark environment. When it was his turn to test, he quickly marked the position of all the chameleon on the white paper map. It was done in 1 second. Even the staff in charge of supervising the perceptual testing was a little surprised. He stared at the young man wearing the bird mask for a long time. It seemed that he didn't open his perceptual field at all. He only used his naked eyes to observe the position of the chameleon. In the second stage, please find the wandering ghost and make it appear in 1 minute. Is it that difficult? Listening to Han Dong's question, the staff was a little disappointed. If you can't find it, you can choose to give up in advance. I mean, the difference in difficulty between the first and second stages is so big. Can you really test the accurate data? Han Dong also couldn't see any so-called ghosts. But with the special attributes of the little magic eye, plus Han Dong often came into contact with the space energy in the land deed as a lord. He could clearly feel that there was a space mezzanine hidden in the current testing area. Although he wasn't proficient in space, Han Dong could use the little magic eye to capture the entrance of the overlapping space and the connection point. He could open the entrance by touching the point. After a while, a pure white spirit was drawn out of the overlapping space by Han Dong. The test was completed. The total time taken was tens, including the time Han Dong talked to the staff. Everyone, including the staff and the graduates who were about to question the existence of the ghost, were all present. Ahem. The staff cleared his throat and tried to explain the meaning of the second stage of the test as calmly as possible. Even if you don't pass the second stage of the test, you can still get a passing grade. The second stage is set because of the uniqueness of higher life forms, which allows them to create a variety of hidden spaces of different sizes outside the city. Just like the situation faced by the previous testers, ordinary detection and perceptual means can't obtain information about the overlapping space. If the team of knights who go out to investigate can't detect the hidden space, even if the team is strong, they may be wiped out by a sneak attack. Knights who can perceive the overlapping space are very important to the knight. I see. Han Dong naturally knew that there were many overlapping spaces outside the city, and he also understood the significance of the second test. He deliberately raised this question just to ease the pace of the test. That way, everyone's attention would be focused on the question, why is there such a difficult test? Otherwise, Han Dong could open the overlapping space with a wave of his hand and pull out the ghosts inside. It would be a bit too exaggerated. The test ended. Han Dong's perceptual test grade was marked as. While everyone was still in a daze, Han Dong turned around and left the testing room to avoid getting involved with the other students. The combat test is bound to take a longer time, and the number of graduates choosing combat should be the highest. Let's go see what level Mia is at. All 5 of the basic professions were likely to be good at close combat. Even the students of the library were called close combat mages. By attaching the elements to the weapon, coupled with the defensive enhancement of the magic shield, as long as the basic physical training was in place, he would not be weak in close combat. Han Dong followed the signs and arrived at the combat testing area. Due to the large number of people, Mia was still in line. "You're done? So fast?" Han Dong felt that Mia's words were a bit strange. There aren't many people in the perceptual test, and the process is fast. What is the combat test like here? It's divided into 2 stages. The first stage is to use instruments to test the individual's attack strength and nerve reaction speed. The second stage requires you to fight head-on with an instructor. Here, in the benchmark test, almost everyone can get a grade of C or above. But in the second stage of the battle, many people directly choose to abstain. If you don't give up and fight with this instructor, you will be seriously injured in an instant. Oh? Is there a difference in difficulty? He had just finished the conversation. There was a scream. A tower shield engraved with an eagle and a black and gold hand axe flew out of his hand. The strong-built Crusade graduate flew back and hit the wall, blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. Koter Durin, second stage, 3 seconds. This was a graduate who specialized in defense, and what Seed Break killed was also a kind of meat shield type evil, but he could only last less than 3 seconds. This also made many people completely give up on the second stage of the test after passing the instrument test. Han Dong stared at the instructor. The power contained in his body was not comparable to that of an ordinary knight. It should be at the same level as Blood Knight Lucius, who had obtained the royal blood brew, or even stronger. His little magic eye could also peek into the golden energy flowing in this person's muscles. He seemed to feel others spying on him. This dark-skinned bald man, who looked like he came from an African tribe, immediately looked fiercely at Han Dong outside the field. "Mia Semenovich! Here!" Finally, it was Mia's turn. In front of the test device, she deliberately threw a confident look at Han Dong. "Mia, this instructor is a pure strength-type expert. Be careful to avoid him." "Okay." There was no problem in the basic test, and the attack strength and nerve reaction speed both received A and S. At the end of the instrument test, swish swish 6 purple-black long legs grew out of Mia's back, and she immediately jumped and clung to the wall of the test room to distance herself from the instructor in advance. As Han Dong warned, Mia would focus on observation and dodging, and would not consider any offensive problems. A large number of spider compound eyes grew out. Not only on the forehead, but also on each of the long legs, there were compound eyes, and together they captured the target. In addition, Mia also underwent a third change. Spider domain. Pitch-black spiders had climbed onto the dark-skinned instructor's body, trying to disrupt his movements. However, whoosh. In the face of absolute power, everything was fleeting. Power drove speed, power led to pressure, and power sealed space. When the dark-skinned instructor moved, the black spiders in the area he passed were directly crushed. In an instant, an area of 5 meters around Mia was sealed. Boom. It seemed that the interference of the small spiders made the instructor a little angry, and the strength of his punch was stronger than before. This punch made the entire test area tremble, and the graduates behind Mia lost their will to fight. However, this punch did not completely hit Mia's main body part. Instead, it broke one of Mia's spider legs. Mia, who was completely confident at the beginning, now showed a difficult expression, swallowed self-made herbs to stop the pain, and tried to distance herself as much as possible. "Very good, you are the first student today to be able to avoid my attack." Just as the instructor said this, Han Dong could see the increase in the concentration of energy in the instructor's muscles, and decisively shouted, "Mia, surrender quickly!" Mia might not listen to other people's advice. But when Han Dong said this, Mia decisively raised her hands, and the next second, the dark-skinned instructor was standing behind Mia. Perfect control of power, so this person's instantaneous explosion was unparalleled. The injured Mia could not avoid the next attack, and if she was hit, it might affect her subsequent knight selection. Mia Semenovich, second stage duration, 13 seconds. Next tester, Sean Nibirius. Chapter 526. An underground student? Cutting in line? Han Dong clearly remembered that the student behind Mia was a graduate who used a spear as a weapon. However, a student wearing a cloak and a skull mask suddenly cut in line and followed Mia to participate in the combat test. Due to the terrifying strength of the instructor, the students behind also needed to take a break and didn't care about cutting in line. Mia got an A in the combat test, but she wasn't satisfied at all. I can actually do better. If I use all my strength, I can definitely hold on for more than a minute. Moreover, this level of difficulty is bullying. This instructor is definitely stronger than an elite knight. Since it's an arrangement by the knight headquarters, it naturally has its meaning. Besides, Mia, your registration results are also very good. You should be able to be assigned to a better team in the subsequent knight election. After watching this underground student's performance, let's go back. Okay. I'm not very happy today. You can accompany me later. We'll talk about it later. Han Dong stared at this underground student seriously. After all, Mr. Black and White and Commander Malone had reminded Han Dong to pay attention to the special students from the underground. It was a good opportunity to see the real strength of the underground student with such a high difficulty test. Instrument detection. Double Shan Dong looked at this underground student with a strange expression and muttered softly, "This guy clearly saw the battle between Mia and the instructor. This kind of instructor has surpassed the level of a knight. It's impossible to fight head-on." He actually didn't choose to distance himself at the first moment to buy more time. Is he planning to give up? However, the graduate wearing the skull mask chose to bow to the dark-skinned instructor, indicating that the second stage of the test could start at any time. This hot-tempered instructor didn't care about the junior at all. He punched everyone he saw. The graduate hiding in the cloak had no time to dodge. The punch hit. Bam! However, the outcome was different from what everyone expected. This student wasn't sent flying. Instead, he steadied himself after taking 9 steps back. The wind from the punch had also lifted the cloak that the underground student used to cover his body, revealing a red iron body that seemed to have been hammered out of Hell's iron drill. Could this be the Hellbrat that Commander Malone spoke of? His body structure is similar to Togu's. However, this guy's body was more inclined towards metallization and no longer belonged to the category of a normal body. Moreover, this guy had pure demonic blood flowing in his body. How could the Hell Knights produce such a student? Han Dong deliberately used the word create. This meant that such a student in the Hell Knights must have undergone some unknown physical modification, and even his blood must have been changed. Of course, one's body had to be strong enough to withstand the Metal Fiend body swap. Currently, the student named Xiao Un was holding the instructor's fist tightly, completely blocking the attack. Since he was wearing a skull mask, it was impossible to see the changes in his expression. In the next second, an incredible scene occurred. Xiao En actually chose to take the initiative to attack while blocking such a heavy fist. A side kick accurately hit the side of the instructor's face. But when the back of his foot kicked, there was still some fire and steam splashing out. Combined with the huge force of this kick, the instructor's head was slightly tilted. Of course, it also angered the instructor to a certain extent. A dark golden energy flowed in the instructor's body, and the power gathered. When the fist was swung, the surrounding space was violently compressed and produced a huge hissing sound. It was impossible to dodge, impossible to defend. This one punch sent this Hellbrat flying. The red iron body also produced a sound similar to metal breaking. Xiao En, who was sent flying like a bullet, directly smashed through the reinforced wall of the test room. Broken stones scattered. His body was embedded in the wall on the opposite side of the corridor. Is someone going to die? Not only were the graduates present or the staff recording the data shocked, but even Han Dong was also taken aback. If he were to take this punch, he would probably have to lie in the dormitory for a week to recover. However, Xiao-en, who had a concave fist mark on his abdomen, didn't lose consciousness. Instead, after 10 seconds, he slowly moved his body and broke free from the broken wall. He lowered his head, as if he was very dissatisfied with his performance. He put on a spare cloak and turned to leave the Hell Knight's headquarters. Xiao-en. Naberius. Duration of the second stage, 27 seconds. Note: cause direct damage to the instructor. Evaluation. Han Dong stared at the underground student in the distance. About 3 seconds passed. For a moment, he couldn't hold back his crazy laughter that resounded through the hall. Because of the unexpected situation, Han Dong couldn't hold back his crazy laughter, causing the long-lost crazy laughter to completely erupt at this moment. This kind of laughter immediately attracted the attention of a large number of people. Half a year ago, the matter of the great betrayer had caused a stir. Basically, everyone knew about it. They had more or less heard some rumors about it. It was rumored that before Captain Malone arrived, the atmosphere was tense. As the core of the matter, a trainee knight actually ignored the pressure of the captain level, ignored the death threat of the high-level hybrid demon, and laughed wildly under the gaze of all the knights. He mocked the high-level hybrid demon that possessed the Writers' Association's president. Currently, the crazy laughter that resounded in the Hell Knight's headquarters made a lot of people reveal a surprised expression. Han Dong realized that he had lost his composure and that his identity might be exposed. He immediately pinched his cheeks to suppress his laughter and quickly left with Mia. What's wrong? Regarding Han Dong's sudden, crazy laughter, attribute, although Mia could accept it, she still felt that it was a bit strange. Nothing. I just feel that this year's night selection will be very interesting. I didn't think that the students in the dark side could reach this level. Mia naturally understood Han Dong's meaning. She was also very dissatisfied with her performance today. She slightly bit her lips and said, I also have to go into the witch's secret room for a period of time. However, you have to accompany me today. I'm very sad that I messed up the test. I'll accompany you to learn from each other. This year's night selection had the largest number of registered students in history, 210. Accordingly, the rules of the night selection would also be changed to a certain extent to better evaluate the characteristics and potential of each graduate. This would allow more fresh blood to enter the night order. 1 month after the registration, the curtains of the preliminaries would officially open. All registered students would gather in the central lawn of the National Royal Knight Academy. The 13 knight regiments would each send a representative to lead the preliminaries and find some outstanding graduates who had yet to be discovered. In history, the grandest knight selection was about to begin. Chapter 527. The preliminaries started at 10 o'clock in the morning. The night selection was different from entering the Destiny space or exploring the outside of the city. Most of the time, one had to fight against people. Therefore, in the month after the registration, Mia often asked Han Dong to accompany her. Han Dong agreed. However, he did not accompany Mia to go shopping or stroll. Instead, he would find Mia to spar with. In a month's time, Mia's state changed from self-confidence to self-doubt and then to autistic. Today was the important opening ceremony of the night selection, but Mia suddenly disappeared. She did not reply to his messages. Han Dong immediately set off for Deadwater Swamp. In the end, he found Mia sleeping in the hammock in the treehouse. She had no intention of getting up at all. The wall of the treehouse was filled with an English word, over. I don't want to go. I'm not interested in the night selection. A graduate like me will only make a fool of myself. I don't want to be a knight anymore. I plan to stay in school after graduation and work for the witch. She was completely autistic. She even gave up on the idea of participating in the night selection. Her eyes were cloudy and had no luster. Han Dong also had a helpless look on his face. After all of this was directly related to him. In addition, Mr. Black and White had also told him that Han Dong and Mia would be excellent students who could enter the top 10 in the mystery branch. They had to try their best to get into the top 10 so that the mystery branch would be valued more as a whole. If Mia, a great general of the mystery branch, gave up the competition because of him, it would be difficult to explain to Mr. Black and White. At the same time, he would be hated by the witch. Even the Great Plague Master would have a lower impression of Han Dong because of this incident. This would be very disadvantageous for Han Dong personally. With this in mind, Han Dong could only compromise. His thin and weak body slowly squeezed onto the hammock that only allowed one person to sleep, and he was completely pressed against Mia's body. This moment of contact made most of the gray fog in Mia's eyes dissipate. If you can get into the top 10 in the night selection, after we become official knights, we'll give you a day of free time. Huh. Upon hearing such a deal, Mia immediately turned around to face Han Dong, their noses pressed together. Her lifeless eyes regained their luster. Are you serious? 1 day of unconditional control? However, I won't do things that are too overboard. Bathing with me and sleeping with me. Is that too much? Not really. For a moment, Mia's mental state rose from the lowest point to the highest point. She grabbed Han Dong's hand and jumped off the hammock. He hadn't even washed up when he rushed to the grassy area where the preliminaries would be held. Hurry up, we can't be late. It's still early. Mia, have you been drinking every day and haven't showered for a few days? There's a strange smell on your body. Hurry up and wash up. Want to join us? We'll talk about it when you meet the requirements. From the door to the bathroom floor, Mia's clothes were scattered all over the floor. Mia's body was absolutely impeccable, but Han Dong wasn't interested no matter how he looked at it. It probably had something to do with his body, a mass of cells, which caused Han Dong's aesthetic to change to a certain extent. Even when Mia leaned slightly against the bathroom door, revealing her charming face and beckoning Han Dong with her finger, it didn't have any effect. Half an hour before the preliminaries began, Han Dong brought Mia to the open grassy area in the center of the academy and met up with the rest of the team. Vice Captain, Sister Mia. A familiar voice came from the crowd. Blacksmith Wunli, whose fiery red hair was tied up in a ponytail, waved happily at the two of them. Beside Wunli stood Abel and Demps. The three of them seemed to have arrived early and met up in advance to talk about some of the changes that had occurred during this period of time, as well as which night order they wanted to join. The 5 people gathered together could be considered the most outstanding graduates of the Night Academy this year. Before and after the seed was broken, each of them had more or less changed their appearance and physical characteristics. However, the expression in everyone's eyes was fixed. Vice Captain, which night order do you want to join? Wunli was most curious about this matter. In her heart, the word invincible was written on the Vice Captain's face. After hearing about the Great Betrayer incident, Wunli insisted that it must have been a trap set up by Han Dong. Relying on his identity as a trainee knight, he successfully lured out the Great Betrayer hidden in the depths of the Holy City. The specifics haven't been confirmed yet. I'll make a decision after the assembly ends. Vice Captain, there must have been many night orders privately looking for you long ago, trying to poach you in advance. Let's not talk about the current situation first. What do you all think about the underground students? Han Dong was most concerned about this matter. After all, he would directly encounter this group of students in the upcoming assembly. Abel and Wunli were not very clear about it. Only Demps pushed up the frame of his glasses. Well, integrating the underground students into the night assembly this year is indeed a troublesome matter. Nicholas, you seem to have some information? Han Dong shrugged. I'm not like you, directly registered by the mentor. A month ago, when I went to the Knight headquarters to register, I accidentally met a special student trained by the Hell Knight. He has quite a terrifying strength. In terms of strength, perhaps even Wunli can't shake him. Trained directly by the Hell Knights. For a moment, Demps was also curious. Being trained directly by the Hell Knights was completely different from going to school. In terms of training intensity, only Abel, who received training in the Behemoth Knights all day long, could compare to him. Well, I'm sure of this. When the information of such a strong competitor was given, Abel Ryan's reaction was the same as Han Dong's at first, revealing a smile. The assembly would only be more interesting with the addition of such an unknown strong person. Demps, can you share your information? Actually, it's nothing. The information of the underground students is confidential. Even Deputy Director Hera can't obtain it. However, there's one very important point. The students who live in the underground are fundamentally different from us. Their learning objectives are different from ours. In the future, they are likely to join the team of night watchers in the city to eradicate hidden dangers in the city and maintain the stability of the city. Therefore, in addition to dealing with monsters, their daily training will also be human training. They are proficient in human methods that we don't have. If we encounter this group of people, once we relax, we may lose consciousness in an instant. This is what I want to remind everyone. According to the intensity described by Nicholas, this year's night assembly may be quite difficult. Everyone must be serious. Don't let the underground students occupy the top 3. If that happens, the reputation of the Night Academy will be lost. Chapter 528. After Demps finished talking about the characteristics of the underground students, he added, "Of course, there are also some graduates in the Night Academy who are immersed in their studies and are unknown to others. Take your friend, Cass Maldini, for example. In the last night election, he defeated several candidates who were originally scheduled to be selected." Han Dong nodded. Cass's talent was not low, and with the addition of the stone attribute hybrid demon seed, he formed the talent tree, Overlord. In the last night selection, he was chosen as the 4th candidate to join the Lionheart Knights and joined the Internal Army for special training. During this period of time, Cass could not be contacted at all. As they chatted, half an hour quickly passed. A total of 210 apprentice knights who successfully broke the seed and reached the graduation standard were all present. At the same time, powerful auras came from different directions one after another. The opening ceremony of the night selection's preliminaries would be attended by a representative from each of the 13 night orders. They would be responsible for organizing the preliminaries and maintaining the basic order. Some outstanding students who fit the characteristics of the Night Orders would be marked in advance. One representative of the Black Rose Knights, 3rd Corporal Macefield Dark Eye. The Black Rose Knights were also known as the Blackguards. The iconic black breastplate had a unique print. It was a special night order of the 13 Night Orders that focused on assassination and defense within the city. They were the closest team to the Night Watch. They were also one of the core Night Orders of the Dark Side. Dark Eye Macefield was a thin, limping one-eyed Knight Captain. He had unique observation skills and was the first to arrive at the scene in a carriage. 2. Representative of the Knights of Pestilence. 3rd Captain Samani Pestilence Heart. Head ornaments made of goat skulls and hand-woven grass vines. Depending on the physique of the knight, they could wear heavy armor, light armor, or give up the defensive armor in exchange for more freedom of movement. They could wear simple straw sandals or walk barefoot on the ground to facilitate the spread of the plague. The main responsibility of the Plague Knights was to spread the plague to assist in investigation, mainly the plague, or to assist in battle through the invasion of the plague, armor-breaking, body erosion. Most importantly, many life forms outside the city carried unknown and powerful plagues. They could only rely on the Plague Knights to investigate and clean up. People had experienced the horrors of the plague hundreds of years ago. Samani, heart of pestilence, the core spreader of pestilence in the Knights of Pestilence. She was a young and talented corporal. Her appearance was that of a northern European witch. She wore an antler helmet, a withered wreath, and a white gown. She walked barefoot on the ground. Her exposed body was fair and smooth, as if she was a natural girl who had been nourished by nature and was untainted by the mortal world. However, when the corporal appeared, the students who were closest to him retreated appropriately. Once he was infected with the plague, he would have no chance in the upcoming knight selection. Holy Knights Representative, 2nd Captain Yates, Victorious Spring of Light. There was no need to introduce the Holy Pure Knight. They were the core support members of the Holy Pure Knights and were indispensable members of the Holy Pure Knight. At the same time, the Holy Pure Knights had a close relationship with the Holy See, and they led all the church activities in the Holy City. This included weekly prayers, holy baptism, stress relief, and the cleansing of cursed and contaminated areas. The knighthood operates under a joint training and management model. The leader and the bishop had the same management authority, and the Holy Pure Knights could receive special holy training in the church. They also had the permission to receive church services for free. This was an essential part of the 13 knighthood. Captain Yates, who walked down from the white carriage, was a female priest who held a light staff. With her as the center, the holy spring of light emitted from her made all the graduates feel waves of warmth. Some of the scars that had not yet healed were also quickly healed under the effect of the halo. Of course, the Holy Pure Knights had the highest proportion of females. 4. Representative of the Behemoth Knights, 2nd Captain Kenny Vulture. Captain Kenny was the person in charge of Han Dong's group training at the Stuart Manor. The Behemoth Knights cultivated a group of humanoid beasts. Usually, when the knighthood went out, they would be the vanguard in the first line. At the same time, they relied on their keen sense of smell and observation to act as scouts. According to the abilities of different beast-type knights, they could usually take on many positions in the team. 5. Representative of the Knights of Misfortune. 3rd Corporal Arthur demonized the Knights of Misfortune had a rather unique position among the 13 knighthood, but it was also an essential special group. The Knights of Misfortune took in a group of people who were evil. This group had a certain antagonistic relationship with the Holy Pure Knight. Those who used demonic energy, had a vile personality, or were born with an evil curse would be taken into the Knights of Misfortune. Human nature was evil. In such an extreme post-apocalyptic environment, the evil of some people would be magnified. However, evil was not necessarily bad. Once used properly, it would be a great help to the cause of human freedom. Furthermore, the Knights of Misfortune's control over curses was unparalleled. The hybrid demons outside the city were proficient in all kinds of curses. No matter how strong their bodies were, they would still be corroded by the curses. This would cause their strength to be constantly weakened during battle, and even cause internal injuries that could never be healed. At this time, the Knights of Misfortune would need to absorb or transfer the curses. They were the functional support members of the 13 knighthood. Arthur Demonized, who had walked here, was an extreme existence who was immersed in the power of demonic energy. He had put all his destiny points into demonic matter and devoured demonic fruits and flesh to transform himself into a demonic person. His appearance was that of a huge demonic person. His black skin was covered with veins, and black smoke was constantly emitting from his body. Under his seemingly terrifying appearance was a rather meticulous heart. He could pick out the vile existences among the graduate. 6. Representative of the Sorcerer Knights, 1st Captain Alonso Observer. The Sorcerer Knights were one of the first knighthood groups to be established. When humans first tasted magic in the Destiny realm, what was once an illusion and only written in novels finally became a powerful force that could be controlled by humans. The Magic Association was also known as the Sorcerer Association. Currently, the Sorcerer Knights maintained a close relationship with the Magic Association. It was rumored that the old captain of the Sorcerer Knights was still alive in the world, secretly maintaining the development of the Sorcerer Knights and the Magic Association. Alonso Observer, who had just arrived, was also the supervisor of the Magic Association. His completely transparent eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. He had specially come to the preliminaries to capture magic apprentices with magic roots. Chapter 529. 7 Representative of the Final Knights, 3rd Corporal Saguranzis, Undertaker. Han Dong had seen this old man at the auction in advance. When he appeared, he nodded slightly to Han Dong. The role definition of the Final Knights was not clear. It did not say that they were standard medical personnel like the Holy Knight. This group of knights wandering on the edge of death had the ability to kill beyond the average knight. They could quickly kill the enemy in battle. Often, when the knights launched an offensive expedition, they would bring the knights of the last knight regiment with them so that they could end the battle quickly. 8 Representative of the Scarlet Knights, 2nd Corporal Dr. Langdon Kastanov, Butcher. A middle-aged man with blonde hair combed back, wearing a white suit and blood-red glasses, exuded an uncomfortable smell. The reason why this corporal was crowned with the title of Butcher was because he set a record of eliminating lives outside the city in a single day during a night expedition. Because the team was trapped in the nest of the hybrid demons, this person killed 398 lives outside the city and 2 hybrid demons in one day, allowing the team to successfully escape. He was worthy of the title of Butcher. At the same time, he was also proficient in surgery and had received a Chief Physician Certificate, specially issued by the Red Cross Association. As for the position of the Scarlet Knights, it was also inclined to support medical support, blood replenishment and blood exchange, and ultra-fast surgery. In addition, some people with special physiques had strong regeneration and blood power. They could serve as the leaders of the Knight Squad, such as Blood Knight Lucius and Corporal Langdon. As for the Scarlet Knight's leader Shea Cromwell, she was also of very special existence. Because of her position, the position of the Scarlet Knights was not low at all among the 13 knights. 9. Representative of the Hell Knights, Deputy Corporal Otto Drogba, Hell Archmage. Han Dong was very clear about the reason why the Deputy Corporal came in person. This person's arrival might be because of the importance of the Hell Kid, and wanted to see if he could step on the apprentice knight who graduated from the Knight Academy. The armor of the Hell Knights was engraved with a skull with a broken demon horn. The Hell Knights only existed for one reason: to crush their enemies. Hell was the deepest part of the destiny space created by humans. Through the nodes and the bell tower, some humans with the Hell attribute could enter and develop their potential. It was precisely because of the uniqueness of Hell that knights were unimaginably destructive. 13 people opposed, 16 people agreed, and 8 people abstained. The Supreme Council would officially establish a special knight team in the Dark Plane that was directly connected to the realm of destiny, the Hell Knights. His position was very simple. He would be the main destroyer of the team and destroy the enemy from the front. Now that Commander Malone had completed the legendary difficulty, King's Trial, in Hell and had officially become one of the Kings of Hell, the status of the Hell Knights had also greatly increased. Due to Malone's return, the Great Expedition would reap greater benefits than expected. 10 Representative of the Lionheart Knights, 3rd Captain Truman Ironhead. The golden lion head seal on the Silver Knight's armor was particularly eye-catching. A muscular captain with a full beard arrived. He wore a heavy barrel-shaped helmet and his entire body was wrapped in metal armor. A 2-meter-tall barrier shield was behind this person's back. His equipment weighed more than 2 tons, and every step he took left a deep footprint on the ground. The Lionheart Knights were also known as the Barrier of the Holy City. They were the most reliable knights, and could always stand at the front of the team to resist most of the damage from the hybrid demons. Even their resistance to pollution was many times higher than people of the same level. Stronghold, Defender, and Righteous Lion were their names. Every team wanted a Lionheart Knight to lead them, so that the other members of the team could unleash their abilities to the fullest. 11. Representative of the Wind Knights. 2nd Corporal Eden Moonlight's daughter. This captain had the style of the Behemoth Knight. He rode a pure white Bengal tiger to the venue of the qualifiers, completely close-fitting white soft armor with silver edges, showing the slender figure of this corporal. Her appearance was similar to the elves in fantasy novels. It seemed that she had obtained the true elven bloodline through the realm of destiny, and always maintained the beautiful appearance of a 20-year-old. An epic longbow Moonlight, behind her back, attracted the attention of most men as soon as she appeared. Han Dong still did not respond. The Wind Knights were long-range shooters. When they joined the group, they would be issued a short dagger imprinted with the Mark of the Wind by the head of the group. Every member was required to carry it with them at all times. This dagger was only allowed to be used when death came. Otherwise, it was necessary to provide sufficient and fatal long-range support to the Knight team at all times. At the same time, the Wind Knights were also excellent scouts. 12. Representative of the Steam Knights. 1st Corporal Mekatok. Deep Copper, Master Mechanical Craftsman. So far, the only corporal who did not emit any strong pressure came to the scene in a steam carriage made by himself. He looked like a thin middle-aged man in his 50s. Explosive hair, double copper-rimmed glasses, and denim overalls were full of repair prop. He did not look like a knight at all. He was not much different from the employees of some mechanical goods stores. However, with the arrival of this person, the representatives of the other knights greeted him politely. Mekatok, Master Mechanical Craftsman, the current president of the Craftsman Association. The knights carried out investigations, treasure hunts or expeditions, and transportation devices were indispensable. The quality of the transportation device had a direct relationship with this Mekatok. The Steam Knights were a rather professional auxiliary group. They were mainly responsible for vehicle maintenance, equipment repair, and temporary production of metal ammunition during the march. At the same time, they were also responsible for long-range attackers, a combination of mechanical firearms and Fate ability, or with steam prosthetics to assist in melee attack. Expeditions of medium scale and above must be accompanied by a sufficient number of Steam Knights, who could provide a steady stream of marching power. Moreover, the craftsmen had a smart brain. When the team was in danger, they could often find another way and come up with a very useful escape plan. So far, the representatives of the 12 knights had all appeared, and there was only one left. After waiting for about 5 minutes, as a relatively shabby carriage slowly drove over, they finally welcomed the last representative of the knights. A middle-aged man covered in dust and wearing a pair of slippers seemed to have realized that he was late. His face was filled with guilt. When he got off the carriage, the man's center of gravity was obviously unstable. He barely held on to the carriage to stabilize his body. There were deep dark circles around his eyes, as if he had just finished an all-nighter and arrived at the scene. He was not equipped with any knight armor, nor was he wearing or holding any high-quality Fate items. The only item was the shabby notebook hanging on his waist. If one looked carefully, they would find that the notebook's leather cover was engraved with the seal of the knights, question mark and magnifying glass. Everyone, I'm really sorry. Recently, the mission given by the Holy City has not been completed. Everyone in the Knights has been staying up late to improve their performance. There's really no manpower available, so I have to come. 13. Representative of the Knights of the Secret Word, Commander Hugo Harrison. Chapter 530. Captain Hugo, you actually came in person for this kind of preliminaries. Alonso Observer, the representative of the wizard god knights, immediately stepped forward to greet this civilian captain. His words and actions showed respect for his elder. The other representatives also bowed slightly to show their respect. Even though there was a big gap between his image and the title of captain, judging from the performance of the captains and deputy captains, this person was naturally worthy of the title of captain. Why can't the magic I see this person? Strange, what's going on? Out of curiosity, when Han Dong tried to pry into the uniqueness of this captain of the Secret Words Club, a strange situation that had never happened before happened. As long as he used the magic eye slightly to increase the visual intensity, this Captain Hugo would completely disappear from his visual senses. He could only be seen with the most ordinary naked eye. However, because of Han Dong's peeping, even if it was only for a moment, it immediately attracted the attention of this captain. He tilted his head slightly. A pair of ordinary eyes under the messy brown hair looked over and showed a friendly smile to Han Dong. At the same time, it also indicated that he should not pry into other people's privacy. Because of the two captains' warm invitation, plus Mr. Black and White's constant support, Han Dong had originally made up his mind to only choose between the above 3 knight regiments. Therefore, he didn't go to the library to read the detailed introduction of the 13 knight regiments in detail. He completely didn't know about this Secret Words Club, which rarely appeared and had relatively few night activities. Naturally, he also didn't know this civilian Captain Hugo. Han Dong hurriedly poked Demps's shoulder with his finger. Demps was widely involved and naturally knew some information. Hey, can you explain the background of this Captain Hugo? Nicholas, you don't even know the captain of the Secret Words Club. The night election has already begun. Your actions are a bit strange. Haha, I really didn't pay much attention to it. Han Dong was also a bit helpless. He had even just heard of the Steam Knights. Anyway, the opening ceremony of the conference will be some unimportant speeches. Let me tell you in detail about the most mysterious and oldest Knight Order among the 13 Knight Orders. The history of the Secret Word Knights was even longer than that of the Sorcerer God Knight. It evolved from the Archaeology Association, founded by the people who built the Holy City. The existence of the Secret Words Knights was to decipher the true secrets of the life forms outside the city. Through his unique archaeology, he could obtain information that other knights could not. The members of the Order of Knights were different types of scouts. They often went on special activities outside the city, ancient tomb exploration, mystic realm exploration, etc., as special support personnel. At the same time, they were all masters of formations and construction. The Holy City's energy supply formation, defensive barrier, and city wall construction were all directly related to the Secret Word Knight. Of course, the construction of the city walls and some mechanical facilities are also related to the underground furnace fortress, the Machinery Association, and the Steam Knight. A master of archaeology, architecture, and formation? Interesting. Demps nodded slightly and continued to explain. As for this Captain Hugo, he is a truly mysterious figure. According to Deputy Director Hera, the Holy City has set his file as the top secret, and no one is allowed to access it. Moreover, Captain Hugo is slightly different from the other captains. He did not participate in the expedition activities in the past decade or so, nor did he need to participate. He could also ignore the meetings in the Holy City. It is rumored that Captain Hugo and his small cabinet team are dedicated to the study of the nature of the hybrid demons. Therefore, the Parliament specially allowed him to not be bound by the duties of a captain. He only needs to do the research tasks given to him by the Holy City. He seems to be a person who doesn't seem that important on the surface, but is actually quite important, Han Dong's intuition told him. The most powerful combat forces in the Holy City were captains like Alex Reaper and King of Hell Malone, who were individually powerful. However, the people who really maintained the stability of the Holy City and paved the way for the future were Mr. Black and White and this Captain Hugo, who worked behind the scenes. Their work in the dark might be more difficult than fighting the hybrid demons on the surface. As the opening ceremony ended, the preliminaries officially began. Since Captain Hugo was present, he was the one who announced the rules of the preliminaries. He did not have the aura of a captain at all. It even felt that Captain Hugo might fall asleep directly while reading these rules and documents. Hello, all outstanding graduate. In the preliminaries this time, according to the assessment items you selected and the results you obtained during registration, you will be divided into different groups. You will follow the 13 Knights representatives to different areas for the preliminaries assessment. The relevant group list will be displayed by Alonso. I'm so sleepy. Alonso the observer immediately took over. With a gentle wave of his hand, a detailed group list was drawn in the air with the essence of magic. Abel had to be separated from the Behemoth Knights due to the issue of close kinship. He was assigned to the assessment group of the Knights of the Lionheart, Truman Ironhead. Demps was assigned to the assessment group of the Sorcerer Knights, Alonso the Observer. Mia was assigned to the assessment group of the Knights of Misfortune, Arthur Demonized. Wenli was assigned to the assessment group of the Steam Knights, Mekatok Deep Bronze. Han Dong was assigned to the assessment group of the Knights of the Secret Words, Hugo Harrison. Everyone, perform well. It won't be a problem to pass the preliminaries. Everyone dispersed. Han Dong came to the team that Captain Hugo was personally in charge of. There were a total of 18 people in the assessment team. Most of them participated in the perception test during registration, and some of them were construction apprentices from the mechanic class. The subsequent preliminaries would also be based on the evaluation results obtained during the registration test to a certain extent. There's no need to be nervous. The preliminaries I'm in charge of are different from theirs. You just need to go to the secret room of my knights and read some documents copied from the hybrid demon nest. The specific rules will be explained in detail when we arrive at the destination. What you need to pay attention to in advance is that you are about to go to the secret room where important cultural relics are stored. Without permission, you are not allowed to touch any cultural relic. Otherwise, you will be directly disqualified. If there are no problems, each of you can fork out some money and carpool to the headquarters of the Knights of the Secret Words. It's best if I can take a ride. I came out in a hurry today and did not bring the clockwork device and the copper coins. Although everyone had heard of Captain Hugo's name, it was a little too low to go out without money and ask a student to take a ride. Moreover, coincidentally, other than Han Dong, the graduates who were assigned to this group all seemed to know one or two people. They could just carpool with each other. This student doesn't seem to have any friends. Why don't I carpool with you? When we arrive at the workshop of the Knights of the Secret Words, I'll pay you half of the cost of the carriage. Of course, if you're willing to bear the cost alone, that's pretty good too. Captain, I'll treat you to a ride. Thank you very much. It just so happens that money is tight recently. Due to the delay in completing the mission given by the Holy City, our finances are already in a serious deficit. The higher-ups are also unwilling to approve any funds. These days are really too hard. Sigh. Chapter 531. The headquarters of the Knights of the Secret Words was different from the grand courtyards on the third floor of the Holy City. Due to the uniqueness of their position, the Knights had built their own headquarters on the foundation of the old museum. The members of the Knights did not wear any knight armor. They were like clerical workers in the 13 Knights, immersed in the processing of literature and cultural relics all day long. Moreover, the headquarters was located on the second floor of the Holy City, adjacent to the ordinary residential houses. The wheels of the carriage rolled on the uneven gravel ground. Han Dong and the mysterious captain of the Knights of the Secret Words sat opposite each other in the carriage. Hugo flipped through the list of candidates in his hands and finally found Han Dong's profile picture on the last list. Nicholas, a student from the Commoner district, majoring in mysticism, obtained an S-level evaluation in the perception test. Not bad. Han Dong could only smile awkwardly. To be honest, being alone with this mysterious and unfathomable commander was a little uncomfortable. Do you know anything about archaeology? To be honest, I don't know much about it. Our archaeology here is different from the conventional sense. It's mainly about finding the origin of the hybrid demons from ancient objects. If you're interested, you can try to learn. Due to the Great Expedition, the workload has doubled, and our knights are a little understaffed. As long as your personal ability is not particularly bad, you can directly apply to me. When the time comes, you just need to perform casually at the night conference. It doesn't matter even if your overall results are in the bottom few. Okay, Captain Hugo. ZZZZ. Just as Han Dong nodded and looked over, he found that Captain Hugo had fallen asleep. Not long after, the carriage stopped at the end of a street that few people used. It was facing a dark gray residential building with a total of 5 floors. The sect was blurry, and there was no way to identify any street information. It was completely different from Han Dong's impression of the rather grand headquarters of the Knights. Of course, to a certain extent, such a relatively commoner building was more convenient for hiding secrets. Captain Hugo stood at the front door and reached into his pocket for a long time before turning his head with an awkward expression. Oh, I forgot to bring the key. Everyone, please wait a moment. Regardless of whether he rang the doorbell or knocked on the door, no one came to open the door for the regiment commander. With no other choice, Captain Hugo could only go around to the side of the building. Using the uneven bricks as a support point, he climbed up to the second floor with difficulty, and then entered the building through the unlocked window. 5 minutes later, Captain Hugo, who was covered in dust, opened the front door. Haha. Everyone in the knighthood has been working overtime. They haven't slept for a few days, so it's normal that they didn't hear the knock on the door. Everyone, just follow me to the relic room. Do not disturb the work of my knight. Yes. The interior of the building was completely a civilian work area. Through some of the windows in the corridor where the curtains were not drawn, one could directly see the members of the Knight Regiment who were writing furiously. A large number of scrolls were piled up on the ground. However, these knights were in a very strange state. They were all writing with their eyes closed. As for the written words, Han Dong couldn't understand them. A short while later, under the lead of Captain Hugo, they arrived at a yellowish stone room that stored a large number of relics and old scrolls. Graduates, the rules of the preliminaries are very simple. It will be based on your results during the registration. From the highest to the lowest, you will have to choose a relic or a scroll from here. You will have to complete the appraisal of the relic in the shortest time possible. Your final results in the preliminaries will account for 30% of the night selection. I hope that you will perform well. Let's begin now. First, the students who scored will choose a relic. You must pay attention to order. You are not allowed to speak loudly, and you are not allowed to whisper to each other. You must complete the appraisal of the relic by yourself. After you are done, you can just throw your appraisal document in front of me. If I can't take it anymore, I will sleep for a while. This Captain Hugo didn't care about the details at all. After explaining the rules of the preliminaries in detail, he ignored the layer of dust on the floor of the relic room, found a large pebble to use as a pillow, and laid down to sleep. He even revealed a happy smile, as if sleeping was a luxury for this regiment commander. No matter how low this regiment commander's performance was, the knight's presence still attached great importance to the preliminaries. No one disobeyed the rules, and they all started the preliminaries in order. Han Dong was the first to step forward to choose. After sweeping his eyes over the relics, he made a decision. I can't make up my mind at the moment. In order not to waste time, everyone can choose first. Han Dong took the initiative to give up the right to choose first. This action seemed to have attracted the attention of Captain Hugo. The seemingly sleeping regiment commander was faintly looking at one of his eyes. One could faintly see that Captain Hugo's eyeball was flickering with a misty rainbow-colored luster. Until the end of the examination, when all the graduates had completed their appraisal reports, Han Dong still hadn't made his choice. The graduates were in a competitive relationship. Han Dong not accepting the preliminaries according to the rules was a good thing for them. After everyone had submitted their appraisal reports, they left. Han Dong stayed behind alone and wrote a special appraisal report. Captain Hugo, who was sleeping on the floor, opened his eyes slightly. Before he opened his mouth, a voice came from all around the room. "Have you had a similar experience before?" Han Dong nodded. Yes, the destiny before the seed was broken happened to belong to this incomparably realistic dream. At that time, I also slowly inferred that I was in a dream, based on various detailed observations and strange settings. Your appraisal report is very interesting. You can't recognize the words written by the door signs and the clerical workers, so you guessed that this is a dream domain. What if you don't recognize the words written by them? Not recognizing and not being able to recognize are two different concepts. I can clearly distinguish this. In addition, I also have the ability of the eye technique. However, when I used the eye technique, I couldn't detect your presence. This means that when Captain Hugo first arrived, he used an even higher level of eye technique on all of us. In addition to some of my previous special experiences, I concluded that this is a dream assessment place built by you, Captain. As expected of the core figure of the Great Betrayer incident, there hasn't been a graduate who has obtained full marks in the preliminaries of my secret word nights for more than 30 years. Congratulations! I hope you can perform better in the selection phase. The dream ended. In the blink of an eye, the 18 students who had accepted Captain Hugo's assessment all woke up at the gathering area on the lawn of the Night Academy. They looked at each other. Only Han Dong revealed a smile and muttered softly, "This Captain Hugo, where did he come from?" Chapter 532. The representatives of the 13 night regiments completed the preliminary assessment of the 210 graduates with different rules. After that, the representatives gathered at the night headquarters and submitted the assessment results. They all came to the conclusion that the quality of this year's batch of graduates was higher than expected. Not only did the students from the underground area have amazing performances, but the overall quality of the students from the Night Academy was also higher than in previous years. Alonso Observer, who represented the Sorcerer Deity Knights, inadvertently glanced at the summary table of the assessment scores and saw a full score evaluation. Captain Hugo actually gave a student a perfect score? This Alonso Observer was proficient in the rare starry sky magic and had a unique understanding of space. Other than his own regiment commander and the librarian, the person he admired the most was Regiment Commander Hugo. If the assessment results exceed my expectations, I will give a perfect score. This batch of graduates is very interesting. It just so happens that the great expedition will be delayed for a while. This group of graduates might be able to make it in time. Alonso was a captain who preferred stability. He was very clear about the importance of this great expedition and was firmly against adding uncertain factors to the expedition team. During the expedition, even an extremely small factor could cause a snowball effect and lead to the team being wiped out. This batch of graduates? Is it necessary? When the great expedition comes, they might not have enough training. They might not even know some basic investigation knowledge. We'll see when the time comes. By the way, Alonso, there should be underground students in your team, right? How did they perform? Alonso frowned slightly. He was the first captain of the Wizard God Knight Regiment. He had long heard that there was a genius student in this batch who was proficient in all kinds of magic, Demps Martin. He was also one of the important figures in the Great Betrayer incident. However, in the preliminary assessment, there was a student who received a higher evaluation than Demps in the magic-related preliminary assessment. The underground students are very strong. This year's night election will be much more intense than before. Yes, as soon as he finished speaking, Captain Hugo in front of Alonso suddenly changed. His appearance and body shape were distorted and changed. He turned into a staff member of the night headquarters. This staff member was still a little confused. His memory stopped at the time when he ran to the secret word nights to present the representative invitation for the preliminary assessment last night. The staff member was holding a letter of apology. My apologies. Recently, my knighthood's workload has been too heavy. My subordinates and I can't leave the office, so I had to borrow your body for a day. As compensation, you will be given a chance to go to the secret word nights to appraise their items for free. Mystery Branch, Stargazing Room. After finishing the preliminaries, Han Dong immediately went to meet with Mr. Black and White. He wanted to know more about this captain. Captain Hugo personally came to the scene? Sir, you can't see it? Han Dong was a little surprised. He thought that Mr. Black and White knew everything. Just like how I was unable to pry into the fate of the former president of the Writers' Association, this Captain Hugo's fate is hidden even deeper than that of the former president of the Writers' Association. In fact, it's not even in the fate of the current president. Even if I use your fate as a foundation, I can only see that you achieved excellent results in today's preliminaries. However, I can't capture any intertwining of Captain Hugo's fate with your fate. At this point, Mr. Black and White sipped his cocktail with slight interest, letting the wine flow into his mouth along the crack of his mask. What do you think of this captain? This. Han Dong had originally wanted to ask Mr. Black and White about this mysterious regiment commander, but Mr. Black and White had actually countered him with a question of his own. A regiment commander that I can't see through at all, and I can't even dig out a single bit of information about him. In fact, I even feel that the regiment commander Hugo, who is participating in the qualifiers, is just a fake. From the level of contact I've had so far, I can only give this evaluation. This answer is still pretty good. Captain Hugo won't reveal any characteristics in front of outsiders. His level of caution is even several times higher than the thing that once lurked in the body of the president of the Writers' Association. After all, he's the chief engineer of the Holy City, New Interna. If he had any characteristics that you could see in advance, the Holy City would have been breached by the hybrid demons long ago. I didn't expect that he could still find time to participate in the preliminaries during such a busy time. It seems that Hugo seems to be very interested in you. The Great Expedition is coming, and he's currently designing a new project that can ensure the safety of the Holy City during the Great Expedition. This period of time is also the time to submit progress report. I'm afraid he doesn't even have time to sleep. Chief Engineer, due to Captain Hugo's importance, the Holy City has stored his personal information in the depths of the Supreme Council. In addition, he doesn't need to attend any meetings or participate in any activities outside the city. Even the other captains of the Knights don't know much about Captain Hugo. Unfortunately, due to some problems with the city's defense, I've had a lot of contact with Captain Hugo. I can indeed give you some unknown information. Of course, any information about Captain Hugo is top secret. Once it's leaked, it'll be very troublesome. Keep it a secret. Mr. Black and White handed a heavily encrypted note to Han Dong. Han Dong only glanced at it and burned it immediately. As his brain spun quickly, he disassembled and reorganized the secret code and analyzed it into relevant information. Han Dong was so frightened that he stood up from his seat and stared at Mr. Black and White with his eyes wide open. Han Dong even suspected that Mr. Black and White was joking with him. There's a reason why the Holy City has classified Captain Hugo's information as top secret. The election is coming, you should think about it carefully. Thank you, Mr. Black and White. When he exited the Dark Moon Tower, Han Dong still hadn't recovered from his shock. After all, the amount of information given by Mr. Black and White was too shocking. I really need to think about it carefully. This Captain Hugo's background is too exaggerated. If I can get this person's protection, even if my identity is completely exposed in the future, I might be able to fight for the opportunity to continue living in the Holy City. Moreover, the knights led by Captain Hugo must be quite special. I really need to think about it carefully. In this way, Han Dong's target knights had an additional option. The knight headquarters collected the results and personal information of 210 graduates through the registration test and the preliminary assessment. They formulated the most suitable official election rules within a week. All the graduates received an exquisite invitation letter. The official knight election competition would be completely open to the public in mid-September. The venue for the official competition was selected to be the Arena of Hercules. The largest arena in the Holy City was also an important area for high-level knights to undergo the 12 trials. The 13 captains, the Pope, the presidents of various associations, and members of the royal family would all attend this knight conference. Chapter 533. Arena of Hercules, Arena of Hercules. It was also the highest-level arena built from the blueprints given by the Secret Word Knights. It was set up on the 3rd floor of the Holy City, and was usually used for the trials of high-ranking knights and even the assessment of new commanders. In the past, the knight tournament had never been held in such a fighting arena. Obviously, the higher-ups had all realized that the quality of this year's graduates was much higher than any previous batch. The council had even drawn up a 10-year draft. If this batch of graduates could develop smoothly, a major plan would be realized within 10 years. There were a total of 12 entrances to the arena. The reliefs on the walls of each entrance corresponded to the 12 epic-level missions carried out by the god of strength, Hercules. The arena as a whole could bring great pressure to those standing outside. It was as if there were difficult challenges inside that were comparable to the trials of God. Only true warriors were allowed to step into such a place and accept the test of God. Let's enter. Han Dong's team of 5 had agreed to meet in advance and waited in front of the bullfighting gate. They had to insert the clockwork device on their wrists into the groove at the entrance for identification purposes. Mystery Branch graduate Warren Nicholas has received permission to enter. The arena is currently closed. Please wait in the lounge for the opening notice. Just as Han Dong stepped into the inner passageway of the arena, a voice rang out. A powerful suction force suddenly came from the seemingly ordinary stone floor. Han Dong's body shook violently. He hurriedly constructed a yellow sand staff to support his body. Gravity field? The weight suddenly increased by 3 times. This sudden weight was enough to instantly crush an ordinary person to the ground. Han Dong was not a physical student, so he almost embarrassed himself in front of everyone. At this moment, a white figure flashed over. Abel immediately went forward and supported Han Dong. With Abel's physique, he was not affected at all. Because of Commander Kai Meng, Abel had already received all kinds of high-intensity training in the gravity training field. The current environment with 3 times the gravity was nothing to Abel. Are you okay? No. I'm just not used to it. I should be fine in a few minutes. Han Dong had already controlled the yellow sand to help him resist a portion of the gravity. However, when he came into contact with Abel's body, he could feel 2 completely different feelings. Hard, strong, Abel's meat felt 3 times harder than before. The strength contained within it was especially obvious. The increase in strength brought about by the absorption of the Yimo was obvious. Demps also entered one after another, using the invisible magical domain to offset the influence of gravity. I didn't expect the Grand Battle Arena's gravity domain to be tripled before the Grand Battle Arena even began. Today's matches are much more intense than before. Abel, who was in the lead, pointed to the front. I've secretly come here with my grandfather a few times. Follow me, there should be a 5-person lounge up ahead. If we choose to hold the election here, some of our equipment might be restricted. There are more rules in the Grand Battle Arena than in ordinary battle arenas. Mia and Wenli followed suit. Blacksmith Wenli's situation was a little special. Her appearance did not change at all after her seed was broken. Even in today's night selection, Wenli still maintained her previous image, carrying a large bag, wearing a black singlet and loose blacksmith pants. Of course, Wenli's body was comparable to high-grade armor, and there was no need to add more weight to her body. Under Abel's guidance, they arrived at a relatively spacious lounge. What he didn't expect was that there would be a staff member in the arena. The inner area is estimated to be open in an hour. Please take out all your Destiny and Chaos equipment for me to inspect. Due to the rules of the Grand Battle Arena, there are restrictions on equipment. Each person is allowed to bring a maximum of 2 pieces of equipment to participate in the Grand Battle Arena. Mia immediately put on a look of vigilance. She prepared herself mentally for a long time before handing over the demon blade in her hand. In addition, Mia secretly hid a piece of cursed equipment. Wenli quickly handed over her blacksmith's hammer. When she handed it over to the staff member, he had a troubled expression. He had almost failed to pick up such a hammer, which would have required him to use all his strength. Demps took out a single piece of bronze mirror and took off a close-fitting soft armor made of unknown material from his body. Abel took off the beast bone ring and took off a beast skin soft armor. The staff member in charge of inspecting the equipment was also quite surprised. He looked at the group of graduates in front of him many times. The equipment they handed in could be considered luxurious. Even the official knights did not have such good equipment. However, Han Dong took out the raven staff from his body. The staff member completely lost his composure. His shocked expression was completely exposed. A perfect epic ranked staff that was a mixture of chaos and fate. The moment Han Dong grabbed it in his hand, the sound of crows crying could be heard in the lounge. Due to the effect of the aura, everyone felt a sense of lightness sweep through their body and their speed increased. Epic grade. This staff member used to be a member of the Order of Knights. Because of an activity outside the city, he suffered irreparable injuries and could only stay in the city to work. He knew very well what this grade of equipment meant. Although the attributes of this equipment are not restricted by the rules, the quality is high. I need to report it to the higher-ups. Please wait a moment. Okay. After the staff member left, when they saw this staff for the first time, Mia and Wenli also widened their eyes. They could not understand how this staff was made. Moreover, Mia did not use this staff at all in the competition with Han Dong during this period. She suppressed Mia with her bare hands. For a moment, Mia fell into a state of depression again. The demon sword in her hand suddenly did not smell good. After a while, the staff member returned. The higher-ups allowed it. Being able to control such a powerful staff is also a manifestation of strength in itself. There is not much problem with your equipment. If you are found to have used additional equipment during the competition, you will be disqualified. As for medical supplies, all are prohibited, but there is no restriction on on-site self-made medicine. If there is no problem, please rest here for a while. Once the inner field opens, I will bring you in. The staff member, who was originally calm, had a 180-degree change in his expression in an instant when he left the lounge. When he asked the higher-ups about the epic grade staff, he accidentally learned about the special identity of the 5 students he was responsible for. He could not help but whisper, "My God! This team actually has the eldest grandson of Commander Kaimon. Rumor has it that he is the strongest among this year's students, 100 Beasts Abel Ryan. Great blacksmith Hedrig's adopted daughter, Wunley Austin. This year's most famous little magician in the library, Demps Martin. Witch Chironia's chief witch, Mia Semenovich. And the Crow Prophet's student, Warren Nicholas. Rumor has it that he is the central figure in the Great Betrayer incident. If you have time today, you must go to the casino and take a look. Chapter 534. Time's up. The inner field has opened. Everyone, please follow me. The 12 entrances to the inner field opened. In the past, only high-ranked knights were allowed to enter the trials of God. This was the first time it was opened to apprentice knights. It was used for the knight selection. The inner field was more than 200,000 square meters. There were also 13 different replaceable fields under the ground. They could be quickly replaced and stacked with precise steam devices. At the same time, there were 6 functional arrays. The combination of the array formation and the field could create any kind of inner field environment. The boneyard, the blade peak, the giant plant forest, the extreme cold water region, and so on could all be used. Even the eternal night environment outside the city could be replicated. The most common area was the yellow soil area. All the graduates officially entered. Let's go. The moment the sunlight shone into their eyes. All the graduates participating in the selection were shocked. Although they had expected this to happen, when they saw the 13-Knight Legion in the audience and felt the intense pressure coming from the different Legion leaders, they couldn't help but tremble. Without exception, the students' nervousness expanded in their hearts. The 13 regiment commanders, who represented the strongest forces in the Holy City, were all present. This was a scene that had never happened before in the past few decades. Leading the elite knights of the Knight Regiment, they each formed their own camp and lived in different areas of the audience. Due to their special status, the regiment commanders had their unique and eye-catching seat. It was supported by a 3-meter-tall pillar, which made the regiment commander's seat stand out from the ordinary audience. The seat was 3 times the size of the ordinary audience. They were either made of jade, ancient wood, or metal. The embossments, seals, and armrests on the seat matched the regiment commander's personality. The regiment commander of the Black Rose Knight Regiment and the leader of the Night Watchers. Black Sword, Luke Coulon. He was a handsome uncle with black hair that fell to the side of his eyes. His cheekbones were slightly protruding, and there was some stubble on his cheek. He was clad in pure black light armor. There were no obvious muscles. His body was similar to that of a standard male model. He had perfect body proportions. A black sword hung in the sword pouch attached to the seat. He placed his hands in front of him and looked at the students with a deep gaze. Captain Coden was sitting on a chair made of black jade, and there was a picture of a black rose on the back. As one of the underground Knight Orders, the Black Rose Knight Order was also the Knight Order that had the deepest connection with the Night Watchers. They had nurtured many assassin-type elites. Currently, there were quite a number of elite juniors mixed among the graduates to participate in this conference. Commander Coden was also very concerned about the results of this election. Commander of the Knights of Plague, Lord Mograine, Chief of the Great Plague. The chair was made of white stone and decorated with tree branches. A large goat skull was hanging on the back of the chair. A gigantic axe that no human could wield was leaning to one side. The crow perched on his shoulder. Mr. Black and White needed to stay in the stargazing room at all times to observe the situation outside the city. This was to prevent the hybrid demons from invading the Holy City during this special period. The Great Plague Chieftain and Crow naturally stared at Han Dong, who had just entered the arena, chief commander of the Holy Knights and highest priestess of the temple. High Priestess Olivia Christiana white veil covered her face, and a priest's robe inlaid with gold covered her body. Her hands, which looked like those of a young girl, reached out from her sleeves and gently rested on the armrest made of pure white jade. The back of the chair was engraved with the symbol of a cross that shone with golden holy light. Rumor had it that Commander Olivia had already reached the realm of God. With a wave of her hand, she could bring the dead back to life. She was not afraid of the hybrid demons outside the city. Even the corruption brought by the old king was not affected by her. Because she had stepped into the realm of God, Olivia received the seal of eternal life, and her beauty would remain forever. When the graduates entered the arena, perhaps it was because of her unique vision, or because she could sense the existence of all heretics, Olivia's gaze stopped on Han Dong and did not move at all. Chief Commander of the Behemoth Knights, Great Beast, Kaimon Rain Commander Kaimon's chair was one size larger than the other commanders. It did not have any armrest structure, and there were many layers of animal skin cushions under his body. His huge body sat cross-legged and leaned against the back of the chair that was slightly tilted back. The symbol of a great beast with fangs, human ears, and a lion tail was engraved on the back of the chair. From the moment he entered the arena, Commander Kaimon had a smile on his face. He had absolute confidence that his eldest grandson would be able to come out on top in this election. Because of the hybrid demon's perfect seed-breaking, Abel could already control the power in his body normally. Abel, this is the grandest knight election in 100 years. It will also be the stage for you to show the world the style of a king. Chief Commander of the Knights of Misfortune, the Great Demon King? This commander without a mouth and with white rubber skin was sitting on a chair made of white stone like a king, looking down at the students entering the arena. The white demon armor was made of unknown materials. It was 100% compatible with his body and could be worn on his body at any time. His name was unknown. Rumor had it that this commander had completely abandoned his name when he was completely transformed into a demon. All the relevant records and files were also destroyed at his request. Even the commanders addressed him as the Great Demon. His identity was not mysterious, and he was not an anomaly. The former Great Demon was a trainee knight who majored in the crusade. His talent was mediocre and he did not have any outstanding characteristic. However, when he barely made the seed reach a saturated state and went out of the city to break the seed, he disappeared due to an accident. A few years later, the Academy also put him on the death list of those who failed to break the seed. 10 years later, the Great Demon walked back to the Holy City. No one knew what exactly happened in the past 10 years. They only knew that he entered another Gate of Destiny, more than 300 kilometers away from the Holy City. It was located in the center of the ruins of the human empire that had long been occupied by the old king. He opened up the unique cultivation path of a demon. After returning to the city, in less than 2 years, he defeated the former chief commander of the Knights of Misfortune, Jack Watkins Mulcahy Blasphemer, in the Hercules battle arena. After ascending to the position, he had absolute strength and suppressed all opponent. He completely changed the internal system of the Knights of Misfortune, combining the demon's transformation with the curse, and brought the Knights of Misfortune to a new height. Before the return of the Grim Reaper Alec, the Great Demon was known as the #1 fighting force in the Holy City. Of course, no one had ever said that the Grim Reaper was absolutely stronger than this true demon ancestor. When his deep eyes examined the batch of graduates entering the arena, he noticed a special existence. The mouth, that would only open under rare circumstances, appeared on the face of the Great Demon Commander through the pulling of flesh. He slowly spat out 2 words. Magic element. The one that the Great Demon had his eyes on was the Sunny Demps Martin. Chapter 535. Head of the Sorcerer Knights. Revelation. Jeros Midhum, among all the humans in the Holy City, he was the only one who had reached the theoretical standard of an archmage. The chair was made of magic crystals, and there was a picture of a meteorite falling on it. Two arms covered with magewebs rested on the chair. Upon closer inspection, one would realize that these magewebs were actually formed by the wrinkles on the Archmage's skin due to his old age. Through some unknown method, these magewebs had turned into precise magewebs. Jaros Midhome was 187 years old. Due to his old age, his bones were severely atrophied, and he was only less than 1.5 meters tall. He was so old that his whole body looked like wrinkled old skin attached to his shriveled bones. As an Archmage, he did not wear any magic equipment, nor did he hold any magic wand. His face was full of wrinkles, and there were two shriveled eyes staring at the student who appeared. It was a miracle that such a living fossil could attend this event. This old man. Is there more life energy in his body than before? Captain Kamon, who was sitting not far away, could smell the life energy emitted from this Archmage's body. It was not lower than the average person, and it defied common sense to judge how long this person could live. If this old man can participate in the great expedition, he might be able to see the horror scene from 70 years ago. Other than Captain Kamon's gaze. Next to the doomed knight, head of the Grim Reaper, Alex Edward D. Francis. He was also looking at this Archmage, who had long reached the limit of human life. The Grim Reaper did not sense life energy, but could spy on the aura of death gathered in the Archmage's body. The amount was more than 3 times that of an ordinary person. If it was someone else, they would have died long ago. Such a body could not imprison the soul at all. Even Captain Alex was a little puzzled as to how this person could still be alive. Today, the Grim Reaper still used a cloak to cover his thin body, and his face was hidden in the aura of death. After looking at the Archmage, he turned his gaze to Han Dong, who had entered the arena. Head of the Scarlet Knights, Duchess, Shea Cromwell. The back of the chair was imprinted with red lips and fangs. Today, she wore an elegant and noble red dress to attend the conference. Her soul-stirring face and skin that was even more tender than a young girl's made her a goddess in many people's hearts. Just like her title, Commander Xia Yo was also a member of the royal family and the only duchess in the Holy City. Her existence ensured the highest survival rate of the Knights of the Holy City. Commander Xia Yo also had another nickname. Privately, she was called the Heart of the Knights by the city. Without her, the number of expeditions the Knights would have to go out of the city would be greatly reduced. At least 50% of the Knights in the Holy City had received favors from Commander Xia Yo. Leader of the Hell Knights, Malone Hines H. Kazakovic, King of Hell. The chair was overflowing with Hell's lava, and the armrests were designed in the shape of a hellhound. The back of the chair was imprinted with a skull with a demon's horn. Malone was sitting cross-legged on his seat with a special cigar in his mouth. He tried to greet Commander Xia Yo, who was not far away, but she did not respond to him. Helplessly, he could only skip over Xia Yo and shout loudly, "Alex, I'll give you a seat. How about you sit over here? This meeting might go on for an entire day. I need to find someone to chat with to relieve my boredom." As he spoke, Malone deliberately moved his buttocks to make way for Grim Reaper's thin body to sit down. Of course, Death naturally ignored him. Sigh. What a boring guy. At this moment, the deputy leader of the Hell Knights, Otto Drogba, sent a voice transmission. "Leader, please take a good look at this kid from Hell who was nurtured by the Hell Knights with all their might. His strength surpasses that of an ordinary knight, and he will definitely be chosen as the first in line. He will bring great honor to our Hell Knights." Malone did not particularly care about this matter, so he responded appropriately. "I've seen that kid before. He's really not bad." The student that Commander Malone cared about the most was naturally Han Dong, leader of the Lionheart Knights, Grand Knight of Hell, Roland Lion King's pride. On the noble seat made of pure silver, the huge relief of a golden lion was particularly eye-catching. The 10-ton Emperor's armor was worn by this commander, but his movements were not sluggish at all. A powerful aura spread out with him as the center, and all the knights could gain the blessing of strength and momentum from it. The pure-blooded Lion King, whose body length reached 3 meters, was lying on the side of the seat so that Roland's palm could stroke its thick mane. Given the title of Grand Knight by the Supreme Council, he was a necessary leader of large-scale expeditionary forces and had outstanding military achievements. He was known as the strongest shield of the Hell Knights. His golden hair was curly and draped over his shoulders, and he wore a crown equipment from the Destiny Realm on his head. He looked at the students who entered the hall with a satisfied smile on his face. Leader of the Wind Knights and Commander-in-Chief of the City Wall Defense Guards, Lord of Hell, Jack Mason. This leader was a little strange. The area where his seat was located could not be illuminated normally and formed an independent Black Knight area. Moreover, no matter where Jack went, the light would automatically recede. The leader was also known as the Lightless. He was not abandoned by the light, but took the initiative to abandon the light. The only human who could not be restricted in the Eternal Night, and also gain the Knight's enhancement, was this leader Jack. The Eternal Night environment outside the city was even more intimate to him than the hybrid demons. The ordinary wooden bow and quiver made by him were placed on one side. Leader Jack, who was only 1.7 meters tall, had a pair of arms and sharper eyes. He could see through the uniqueness of the students who entered the hall at a glance and read most of their skill information. A lot of interesting information was read out. When he read Demp's information, the data appeared to be garbled. At the same time, when he read Han Dong's information, all he got was strange laughter. He could not read the correct information. The two core figures of the Great Betrayer Incident, leader of the Steam Knights and founder of the Gear Steam Foundation. Patron Gary G. Travix. Leader Gary, who was sitting on the highest gear craft seat in the Holy City, was actually rarely called leader. Most of them called him President. He was the richest existence in the Holy City and controlled the gear craft that no one could turn to. He pushed the Holy City into a semi-automatic era through gear technology. The one sitting on the gear seat was just a gear structure connected to President Gary's brain. He was still sleeping soundly in the vault. In a short period of time, the yellow sand ground had turned into wet soil, and there were even a large number of pits, which were filled with a small amount of contaminated liquid. Weeds about 1 meter tall quickly grew out of the soil. These sharp blades of grass could cut through the skin if one was not careful. Then, every 10 meters, a large tree with a suction cup structure would rise from the ground. The height of the trees was the same as the arena, and the luxuriant structure of the branches and leaves blocked all the sunlight that shone into the arena. He created a fake Eternal Night outside the city. Alonso Observer was going to announce the basic rules of the first official match. His voice was amplified and spread through space, echoing in the forest. The first round of the official competition will be used to test your adaptability outside the city. Due to the Great Betrayer incident that happened half a year ago, even though the mastermind behind the incident had been killed, the great author Stephen still managed to lure out more than 10 hybrid demons that were hiding in the Holy City, as well as a large number of high-level demons, wild monsters, and fallen ones. After the council's discussion, the invaders were not immediately executed. Instead, they were completely sealed and used for the night's assembly. The first round of the official competition, hunting. You need to show your experience outside the city and hunt down the invaders that appear in different areas while resisting the contamination. Every time you kill a non-hybrid demon existence, you will get 1 point. Every time you kill a fallen one, you will get 2 points. Every time you kill a hybrid demon, you will get 10 points. You can form your own team, but the points will only be given to the greatest contributor. The top 50 knights will advance to the semi-finals. The knights who fail to enter the top 50 will be ranked according to your points and the score of the preliminaries. It is important to note that infighting is absolutely prohibited during the competition. Any personal behavior that threatens the safety of other graduates is prohibited, and serious cases will be dealt with by law. Next, you have 10 minutes to warm up. When the rules were announced, the high-grade knights belonging to the Holy Knights were suspended at the edge of the arena in a circle. They were used to deal with unexpected situations during the competition, such as a hybrid demon sacrificing itself in an attempt to summon a higher being. Or if a knight was deeply contaminated and couldn't participate, they would be taken away from the arena and quickly purified. With such a huge arena and an environment that mimics the Evernight, it might be dangerous. Although the points are only for individuals, there are naturally many people who choose to form teams because of the danger, but we don't need to. Everyone form a team and kill as many targets as possible to get a spot in the next round. Okay. Han Dong's team of 5 each had the ability to fight a newborn hybrid demon. As soon as they finished speaking, they scattered in different directions. Mr. Black and White had already reported to the higher-ups about the cooperation with the Crowmen, so it was fine for Han Dong to use the abilities related to the Crowmen. He fused with the Dozier Crows and moved as far as possible to the no-man's land in the arena to enjoy the joy of hunting alone. Soon, Han Dong flew to the end of a branch of a big tree at the edge of the arena and sat quietly like a crowman. 1 minute before the start of the competition, a special 2-man team had also arrived at Han Dong's hunting area. Underground students. In this situation, I only dare to use 30% of my Magic Eyes ability. Any more and the commanders will realize that it's an ability from outside the city. I can't see through their clothes completely, so they don't seem to be simple characters. Should I go somewhere else? Just as Han Dong was about to fly away, the 2 people below suddenly turned their heads and looked at Han Dong at the end of the branch. A gloomy expression slowly appeared from under the hood. Coupled with the strange smile on the corner of his mouth and the curling of his fingers, it was obvious that he was deliberately provoking Han Dong to stay and compete for the kill. He was confident in his own strength and might have impulsively stayed. But the reality was, Gah! Han Dong directly flew away. This scene made the 2 underground students' jaws drop. Are you sure this is the special graduate that Commander Koden wants us to target? Why are they so cowardly? We already expressed our intention to compete. Let's follow them. As long as we can do this well, we can also smoothly join the Black Rose Knights and obtain certain benefits. Okay. Just as the 2 people followed the crows and left, a large amount of yellow sand flowed out from the end of the branch and slowly formed Han Dong's body. As expected, they're targeting me. Black Rose Knights. Commander Koden thinks so highly of me? If he was surrounded and attacked by 10 mantis demons, he would probably have to use some sort of special power to escape. Due to the large area of the battle arena, it was comparable to a small forest. Additionally, due to the obstruction of the dense vegetation, Han Dong was unable to spread out his senses completely. For the time being, he did not know that 10 newborn mantis demons were looking for him. Currently, he was rapidly killing the monsters that had respawned in the current area. After all, this isn't the real outer region of the city. Plus, the evil filth has been imprisoned for a long time. Its movements seem a little stiff. Obviously, it hasn't adapted to it yet. In the forest, a human-shaped crow shadow flew past Xie Wu's head at high speed. There was no killing or casting process at all. The group of evil filth immediately turned into sand from head to toe, quickly turning into a pile of black sand. Even the surrounding vegetation was corroded by the black sand. Naturally, this scene was seen by the various commanders who were watching the battle. There's a fallen in front. A pitiful human who has been completely corrupted by the mantis demons. His mind is corrupted. There's no way to save him. Han Dong had the thought of freeing him and flew towards the fallen. Suddenly, a flying scythe flew towards the fallen and decapitated it. At the same time, a black iron sword came down and crushed the fallen. You found me so quickly. You even killed a lot of evil filth along the way. As expected of the underground students sent by Commander Koden to target me, Han Dong deliberately emphasized the word Commander Koden. This made the two people in front of him turn pale. They did not expect Han Dong to hear their whispered conversation, even though they were tens of meters away from the tree branch. One of the underground students tried to explain, "We're just competing with you. We want to test the strength of the elite students of the Night Academy. I'm Berkeley Vaughn, and this is my sister, Peggy Vaughn. Please don't tell anyone what you heard, Nicholas." He lifted the hood. Hidden under the hood was a pair of siblings. They had the same tattoos on their faces, which represented their identity as trainee night watchers. Both of them had black hair. The sister had a ponytail and held a flying scythe that was difficult to control. The brother did not look very strong, but he could wield a black iron sword that weighed hundreds of kilograms. In terms of individual strength, they could only be ranked in the middle among the underground graduate. Due to their unique and perfect cooperation, they were recognized by Commander Koden. After they broke the seed, they joined the regular training of the Black Rose Knight. Their combat skills were almost on par with the official knight. "Don't worry, I won't tell on you. If you want to pester me, then come at me. However, I have to remind you. Since the two of you have been relying on each other for so long, it's better if you don't follow me. If you die in the night selection, it won't be worth it." There was a certain ambiguity in this sentence. The siblings clearly misunderstood and immediately put up a defensive posture. "What do you mean?" Just as Han Dong was trying to explain, he frowned. The crows that he had scattered around the hunting area in advance had detected something. Han Dong looked helpless. "Although I was mentally prepared that these guys might seek revenge on me, I didn't expect them to find me so soon. It seems that they collected a lot of information about me before they were captured." "What is it?" The Vaughn siblings did not sense anything. "You have 10 seconds. If you don't leave now, it'll be too late." Han Dong began to fully activate the G cells in his body. Barbs were slowly growing out. The siblings had received orders from their commander to disrupt Han Dong. Naturally, they would not leave. The aura of a hybrid demon. The sister Peggy was the first to sense it. "It's fine, if it's just a newborn hybrid demon, the two of us can still fight it. We just need to pay attention to the pollution." The next second, the sister's face turned pale and she exclaimed, "Brother, something's wrong. There are 10 of them." Buzz, a thick and sticky dark space formed by unknown means, covered the area where Han Dong and the siblings were, isolating them from the fighting arena. Voila voila, corrosive rain fell in the area. There were also strange fingers crawling in and out of the grass. A black shadow attacked. A total of 10 hybrid demons with indescribable faces and terrifying tentacles appeared at the same time and surrounded the three of them. In an instant, the goggles that the siblings were wearing exploded. The corners of their eyes were filled with lines of pollution. They relied on their newly formed talent tree to resist this kind of pollution. A total of 10 hybrid demons. This was a dead end that could not be found even if they investigated outside the city. An official night squad could be wiped out because of this. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.